will be released when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. May I have a roll call, please? Here.
Here.
Here. Please join me in a flag salute and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance. That was weird. Okay. And I just want to read the opening statement. Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, advance notice has been given to the Star Ledger, the Record, and the Clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices were posted in the office of the Board Secretary and in all school buildings. So welcome, everyone. We're very excited tonight to welcome our students from the Applied Engineering Invention Club. Dr. Shores?
Yes, I have really pleasure. It's a great pleasure and an honor to invite our students here. I'm going to start by introducing Dr. Lillian Lebowski, who you probably are familiar with, who is going to introduce the rest of the team that's here today. But we've had a very strong finish recently in the New Jersey Steam Tank Challenge. Statewide, we had some, I'm not going to steal the thunder. I'll let Dr. Lebowski share that information. But Dr. Lebowski, if you'd like to introduce your students and their recent accomplishment.
Thank you. I'm Lillian Lebowski. I'm a chemistry physics teacher at the high school. On behalf of the Applied Engineering Invention Club, we want to thank the superintendent, board president, and all the board members for the honor of being here to present our recent accomplishments. I will now turn over things to physics teacher, Mr. Richard Patel.
Thank you. Dr. Lebowski and I are advisors of the Applied Engineering Invention Club. The AAC achieved remarkable growth this year, with 250 members organized into 30 teams under the leadership of 11 seniors, with Maggie Zhao as our president. Notably, 12 teams participated in the New Jersey School Board Association Steam Tank Challenge, competing against 80 other high school teams from across the state. Maggie is now going to introduce the teams that have won over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. In the 2024 NJSBA Steam Tank Competition, Team Viratech, led by sophomores Chris Young, Khan Parlock, and Amari Abdallah, secured third place, earning a prize of $1,000 for our school.
All right. I'm Khan. And I'm Amari. And we're Team WeirTech, and we'd like to introduce to you our innovation, the Weir Plant. The Weir Plant is a smart, integrated plant watering system that uses AI and sensors to optimize plant care.
It also features a companion app that works with a suite of sensors to provide users with access to information on their plant's health, water scheduling, and AI-generated insights.
Now we'll be presenting a video that we submitted for the National NAI competition.
Hi, we're Team WeirTech, and we're inventors in the NAI Genspiration competition. My name's Khan.
And I'm Chris. And I'd like to introduce to you the Weir Plant.
Hey Alexa, how are my orchids doing?
Your orchids are healthy with a plant score of 96. Humidity is at 62%. Light intake is sufficient. Room temperature is ideal, and all soil indicators are healthy.
Not bad. Oh, hey Khan.
Hey Chris.
What's up?
I'm not doing so good. All my plants keep dying, and I don't know what to do to take care of them. I just have to be everywhere all the time. You're just as busy as me, and your plants are in perfect shape. What do you do?
You really want to know?
Yeah.
I use the Weir Plant.
What's the Weir Plant?
This is the Weir Plant. The Weir Plant is a smart home integrated AI-powered plant care solution that takes the guesswork out of plant work.
Smart sensors track plant health in real time. Automated watering system delivers just the right amount of water. AI plus machine learning adapts to different plant species and user habits. The VeriCare app provides expert plant insights and remote control. The VeriPlant features a solar-powered and eco-friendly PLA design that keeps it sustainable.
With real-time sensor-based plant health monitoring and automatic watering, it ensures your plants get what they need when they need it.
Plus, you can even check everything from your phone, or even your Alexa or the smart home device like we just did.
So I wouldn't have to worry about watering them daily or underwatering or overwatering?
Nope, the VeriPlant does it all for you with over 300 plus well-researched plant care profiles. In fact, you know what the best part is? Over time, VeriPlant adapts to your preferences and local environment using its machine learning algorithm.
So in the WearCare app, I would just know my plant species, and the WearPlant would take care of all the work for me?
Yup, exactly.
Who made this? This is amazing.
Me and you.
As plant owners, we can tell you that the worst thing happening is your plant dying. It is all too frequent. The number of plants we've killed is just alarming. This came as a result of our busy schedules with school, extracurricular, and sports.
Our plants really haven't been getting the attention and love they deserve, and that's why we invented the VeriPlant.
Both the houseplant market and the smart home technology industry are rising, with the global houseplant market valued at over $19 billion. As the future integrates technology into more aspects of life, the WearPlant addresses a critical gap in the market by providing an AI-powered smart home integrated solution for plant owners.
There are currently no inventions as advanced or as consumer-friendly as the VeriPlant on the market. Scaling our invention would generate countless deployment opportunities, including jobs in manufacturing, software development, AI development, customer service, and retail distribution. All while targeting millions of houseplant owners, from casual home gardeners to dedicated green thumbs.
After deploying 89 people in our community, 83% said that they think the WearPlant would make their day-to-day life convenience better. 71% said they were interested in purchasing a WearPlant. We've even been endorsed by a local gardening center, Victoria's Nursery.
In the end, the VeriPlant doesn't just water your plants, it truly understands them.
We've been Team WearTech. Thank you for watching.
A simple thumb trick discovered by
Thank you, Veritech. Our next team is Shock Sleeve with juniors Jeremy Cohen, Neil Shramali, Manoj Chinney, and Ishan Chakrabarti. In the 2025 Steam Tank competition, they placed fourth and won $500.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy Cohen.
I'm Ishan. So the issue that we wanted to address with the shock sleeve was the issue of shoulder-related injuries in sports. And throwing sports like baseball and football, overhead throwing motion is very unnatural, putting a lot of stress on the shoulder muscles of these athletes, which leads to a lot of shoulder-related injuries in these sports.
Yeah, so when I was 13 years old, I suffered from an injury called Little League elbow, which is when the medial epicondyle begins to pull away from the humerus. So I couldn't throw for half a year. And after it, I realized that we have a serious lack of recovery technology out in the market.
Shock Sleeve is a rechargeable electrical stimulation and cryotherapy compression shoulder sleeve that offers various modes for users to customize their therapy. It was field tested by 30 out of 50 players on a baseball team that tried the Shock Sleeve, and the average rating was 9.3 out of 10. One quote they said was, "I haven't really used something like this before, but after practice, it really made a difference, and I would definitely use it again."
I also work at a nursing home, and we realized the potential applications there. 14 senior citizens tried it, and the average rating they gave was 9.4 out of 10. A quote they said is, "I wasn't sure about using this before, but it really worked. I'm happy with the results."
So I'm going to demonstrate how you would use a shock sleeve because I brought it in person. So it's really easy to use. All you would do, put it on your arm, tap the pump in, then you take right here, you adjust it to the tightness you desire. And you take this strap out, wrap it under your arm. Adjust it, then you tighten it. So then right here, you have the stimulation unit. Simply turn it on. Battery, all of those. We have 10 EMS relax. So with this plugged in, there are wires that are plugged in, threaded into the sleeve, and then there are pads embedded on each side of the sleeve covering different muscles or targeting. So with the setting on, all you would do is you turn it on, you turn the mode on, and then you begin to feel pulse and sensation, and this will help with all recovery, injuries in the arm, shoulder, tendons, muscles, anything in the area that you're targeting. As well, we have a cryotherapy pad right here, which would bring cold therapy to arms, which will also reduce inflammation, swelling, and venom.
Wow.
Thank you.
Our final invention is Team Vitaflow, developed by Elliot Yee, Ben Song, Arav Motivala, and Matthias Lavani. They won second place and also $1,500.
Hi, my name's Elliot, and because of today's time constraint, we had to shorten our slides, but we hope you can still enjoy our presentation. So we're Team Vitaflow. In disaster zones, where medical facilities are destroyed and makeshift care is the norm, delivering life-saving IV treatments is a logistical nightmare. Bulky equipment like IV stands and infusion pumps simply don't work in war zones. As a result, tens of thousands of people don't get the vital care they need.
Now, what we're seeing is an unprecedented breakdown in medical infrastructure across the globe. In Ukraine, 699 hospitals have already been destroyed. In Gaza, they're seeing average fuel shortages and power outages for 8 hours a day. And it's not just in war zones. During Hurricane Dorian in 2019, for example, every hospital in the Bahamas was entirely flooded and inaccessible, leaving thousands without the care they need. As a result, what a recent Harvard study has indicated is that 90% of intravenous infusions are administered improperly in low-resource situations. Now, what the first responders with field dispatch experience that we've talked to have indicated is that there's a dire need for a solution that is portable, power-free, and adaptable.
And that's where Vitaflow comes in. Vitaflow is a non-powered medicine injection device that is ideal for emergency rescuers in disaster environments. The idea is simple. Through a portable, power-free, and user-friendly design, we have developed a product that safely administers medicine into patients anywhere, anytime. At the core, the premise is simple. An airtight vacuum is created inside the container, which is a balloon filled with IV fluids. The vacuum ensures the fluids are administered at a constant rate and can operate without power or setup.
And you might be thinking, the product sounds great, but does it actually work in practice? And so we've kind of brought it here to demonstrate it today. As you can see, it has a relatively consistent rate of infusion. So this is an infusion rate of about 150 milliliters per hour. So that's something slow. That's for a situation like mild dehydration. And then using the roller system that Matthias mentioned, we can easily adjust the speed, and it still is relatively consistent. So this is a bolus rate, a little bit faster. And then with a push rate, this is kind of for like a severe trauma. So this is something like sepsis or like hypovolemic shock. And still, it's almost perfectly linear. And when you compare our product to the most common competitor on the market, which is a gravity-driven IV system that is manufactured by this company called Braun, the Vitaflow is especially consistent. Now, at any point, Elliot can simply adjust the roller system to stop the flow and adjust it throughout the process as needed. All right, thank you, guys.
Wow.
So overall, this has been a very productive year for the Applied Engineering Invention Club, showcasing our students' empathy, creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills, fostering the invention culture at RHS. Over 5 years, the Applied Engineering Club has been awarded a total of over $10,000 in prize money and 3 3D printers for RHS. This is an addition to the $8,500 grant from 2020 Lemison MIT Invention Program. So invention is a fun, win-win education experience that turned out to be financially beneficial for our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. I have a feeling some of our board members might have a question or comment or two.
Dr. Lebowski, how many students are participating in the Applied Engineering Club right now?
We have over 250 students sign up on the website. Eventually, we have 30 teams formed, start to do invention. 12 of the 30 teams complete the entire invention cycle, participate in New Jersey Steam Tank and Thomas Edison Peach Contest. And
Wow.
2 of them won this year, 2nd and 4th place, out of 80 other high school teams.
That's wonderful. And students, really, I'm amazed at your creativity, your problem solving, and your thoughtfulness in the things that you've created. So I hope this continues. Will any get patents, or what does the process look forward, or is that not?
Well, that's the part we haven't got into. So the furthest we go is we apply provisional patent. And for the real patent, the lawyer fee way over $50,000.
Oh.
So we never really get into that. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful
And
work.
it's not me or Richard, right? It's all the students. They really get this into their mind. They want to invent, use technology to help other people, help the country, help the school, help the community. Right. And that's the most important thing they learn.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure the other.
Yeah, I think I'm just impressed from your inventions and presentation skills. And some of these, I hope you guys continue to pursue them into building real products because there is potential and help the world. So congratulations and keep doing the good work.
The real award is this year, particularly, and our seniors are all going to college, majoring in engineering. For example, Maggie here, she got an offer admission to Caltech, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, you name it. She's going to Harvard. She's on her decision. And we have Cornell, we have Princeton, we have a student go to Northwestern and University of Michigan and Purdue. So we are so pleased. We really sent an army of engineers, STEM students to college.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Wonderful.
fantastic.
Just want to tell you how impressed I am with your thought process, everything that you put into it, your perseverance, your presentation skills. We talk a lot here about the tradition of excellence and what we now often refer to sometimes as pursuit of excellence. And as I was listening to each of you, you personify it. So you've done us all proud. Thank you. And you're very, very inspiring. Congratulations.
This is my first time hearing some of these wonderful accomplishments of students. It's just that the ideas and thoughts to help other people and being so creative, and your products look so professional. So it's from thoughts to creation. It's amazing. I don't know. I really think that something like this, and I would love to hear some of the other groups and things that really should be celebrated. So for that, you should part if all be congratulated. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Just want to echo all of that. Great job, everybody. I mean, these products, when I was seeing them, they look like they're very finely finished, if you will, just like they were made by a real company that's put in a lot of R&D dollars and time and effort. So great job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Sure. Did you?
I just want to say I'm really proud of you guys. Thank you so much, Dr. Lebowski, for always welcoming me into your classroom with your students, and Mr. Platel. Really appreciate your work you've done with students. And students, you've done an incredible job. And I would just highlight too that not only did you come up with some really cool ideas, but I've had a chance to talk to you about a few of the products and the detail that goes into their thought work and putting these together. And particularly, I love the proof of concept work that you all have done. The way that with the IV system that you had with your data chart, I mean, actually taking the time to actually measure the consistency over time, that would be an obvious immediate concern of a practitioner, and you thought about it and you charted it in a way that was really effective. I love the overlay of an existing product on the market, and yours was better than. I mean, that's you guys are like ready to go. So I would say, put your ideas together and let's get you in front of some VC folks, because you might be able to make some real money really soon. So, but no, I think you're all doing good work. I would just reiterate this whole point that the board members are making, that you don't sell yourself short. You're still, you're high school students, and many of you're going to great schools. I know you have a lot to feel good about, but your products and your ideas and your presentation are as good as any. So see these things through.
Shark Tank,
Yeah,
maybe,
let's
right?
go. All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you all
so
so very
much.
much. One last round of applause for our students. And if we can just do a quick picture. And if everybody, before you go, can we just get a picture with all of you? That would be awesome. We like to come over here in front of the little the logo stand.
And you'll have to bring since all of you will be here again next year, I think you have to bring your projects to Super Science Saturday. Yeah. We're gonna do the photos up there. Yeah. I don't think we need to. Okay, that was great. Thank you so much. We are going to move to comments from the public, and we will have a presentation then, which is really the bulk of the meeting, which will be Dr. Schwartz will do the state of the schools. But we'll do comments from the public. I don't know if there's anyone here who would like to make a comment, and then we will go to the to the remote. Yes. If you could say your name and the municipality where you live.
Sure. Good evening. Hi, my name is Cindy Nasser from Ridgewood. And I'm here to talk a little bit about Ridgewood Crew. I have here two rowers from the Ridgewood Crew team, and I just want to quickly introduce the team to the Board of Ed. Ridgewood Crew was founded in 2004, so we've been around for over 20 years. It is entirely parent-funded team, and this year they've been doing incredibly well, and I just wanted to showcase a couple of our rowers here tonight.
Hello, I'm Lucas Evers.
My name is William Nasser.
This season, we both raced together in the varsity quad, which is a 4-person boat. And we competed at a bunch of scholastic races down in like Philly, Camden area. And we just wanted to talk to you and expose you to a little bit of what like we dedicate our most of our time to in rowing.
Maybe we could raise that microphone for you. That would be probably helpful to you. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think this year, as Lucas has said, we've had a especially great season. Just 2 weeks ago, we finished one of the biggest races of our season called the Stotesbury Cup. Personally, we placed second in the varsity quad, which is something we were really proud of. And we had several other top 3 finishes and finalist boats. Last week was Scholastic Nationals, and we also got second there, and several other boats again also medaled there. And then these couple weeks we've been training for the U.S. Rowing Youth Nationals, and we are sending a record number of people from our team, a total of 19 rowers, which is, it's really just an amazing performance for the team.
To go to the youth nationals, you have to qualify through a regionals first, which is like the top people in the Mid-Atlantic region. So like New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, all of those schools. And then so just even getting to say you qualified for youth nationals is a big deal. And then some of the kids that are going this year also went last year. Me and Will won the double last year, but this year we're going in the quad. And last year we were able to make it to the A final, which is like the top 6 boats in the country, or top 8 boats, and we placed 6th, which is a great achievement for the team. Some other boats also made it to the A finals and were in the top 8 boats of the country. So yeah, it's just great to see the progress that this team has made.
And we will be capping off the season a couple of days after Youth Nationals. We'll be going to U.S. national team trials for the U19 double, 2 people in a boat. So that's going to be us, and we're sending also another boat of 2 people and a single person there as well to see if we can qualify ourselves for the national team. So we thank you for your support.
Thank you.
So on behalf of these amazing athletes, I encourage the Board of Ed to support the Ridgewood crew team. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the presentation.
Nice
And
to meet you guys.
good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anyone else here in the public who'd like to make a comment? Okay, not seeing anyone, I'm just gonna go to remote. And we do have, do we have a hand up? Yes. And I can't see those numbers. Was it? Oh, I'm sorry. JH, sorry, I thought it was numbers.
Good evening. I have a question for Superintendent Schwartz and the board. My name is Jacqueline Hone. My question is, what is the current status of the fields and recreation facilities study added to the BOE district goals in October 2023, which continued through 2024? In December of 2024, the public was told that this would be completed soon and presented to the public shortly. Can we please have a copy of that study uploaded to the district website? And then I also have another matter I would like to address. Upon reviewing the Ridgewood Public Schools calendar, I noticed numerous activities scheduled for June 19, the last day of school. These include promotion ceremonies, end-of-year celebrations, orchestra rehearsals, chess club events, and the Ridgewood High School graduation. However, this date coincides with Juneteenth, a day when the village of Ridgewood observes the holiday by closing municipal offices to honor its profound cultural and historical significance. Juneteenth is a deeply meaningful commemoration in the United States, symbolizing freedom and serving as a reminder of the ongoing fight for racial equity. Scheduling school and related activities on this day, none of which acknowledge or honor Juneteenth, stands in direct contradiction to the village's established practice of observing the holiday and respecting its cultural importance. Moreover, the east side of Ridgewood, part of your district, is officially classified as an overburdened community by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. This designation highlights ongoing disparities, including environmental challenges, limited access to open space, and issues of minority representation. Recognizing Juneteenth within the Ridgewood Public Schools calendar would reflect a commitment to addressing these broader equity concerns. Honoring the village's observance of Juneteenth is not only about respecting a holiday, it's a meaningful affirmation of the values of inclusion, cultural respect, and civic participation. It might be too late for this year to do the right thing, but I urge the Ridgewood Public Schools and the Board of Education to align with the village's recognition of Juneteenth by observing it as a school holiday. Recognizing Juneteenth within the Ridgewood Public Schools calendar is not merely about acknowledging a date. It is an opportunity to affirm the district's commitment to inclusivity and cultural respect. By observing this significant holiday, the district would demonstrate its dedication to honoring the diverse values of the community and foster mutual and equal respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, you're on the, is that Ling?
Yes, it's Link here. Hi.
I'm having a hard time seeing it. I'm sitting in a bad angle, but you're on with the board.
All good. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and giving members of the board. I go by Alan as well. President, I actually sent you an email this morning as well as the rest of the board members and Superintendent Schwab's regarding my family's situations with the Wheeler Elementary. So for background, my family recently moved to Wheeler, actually just this last month, with the thought and understanding that our home is zoned for Wheeler. And we recently learned that our daughter, who is entering the kindergarten grade this fall, was reassigned to Orchard due to the capacity issue at Wheeler. And I'm here tonight, of course, it's not only to just talk about this personal impacts, but more so want to raise awareness and the broader concerns around this enrollment policies and school assignment transparency, especially for newcomers in Ridgewood, because I think like probably many young families like myself, we chose our home with the school zoning as that's a really important factors. That's kind of like why we chose where we want to live. And we actually try to move way ahead of this academic years, hoping our kids will have smoother transitions into the local community. But it just appears that because the standard 3 classes per school kindergarten, this kind of a model, it may not be adequately capturing, I guess, the shift in the numbers of the students at the larger district, say Wheeler and Ridge, because those are the two schools where the classes are maxed out. And we just hope that without this mechanism that could transparently allocate the seats based on the timing of the residency, the proximity, or maybe even logistic factors, right? Because now it's like a couple miles away from where we lived. Families like myself are kind of like left uncertain, and I certainly feel in some ways disappointed because we actually call ahead trying to make sure things would go the way we hope. So really, this is really a hope that if I may respectively ask the board to consider if there are any systematic adjustments, especially when it comes to new student enrollment, that has to be adjusted for the capacity plannings or even from an assignment protocol perspective. Yeah, and thank you again for the time and the service to the overall community.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands, and no one else for the microphone, I'll close public comment. And I don't know if you'd like to tackle anything or,
Yeah, I'd love a chance to just acknowledge a few folks, if
Sure.
that's okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. First of all, really appreciate our Ridgewood crew competitors for joining us and for sharing with us their success and having a chance to meet them. We're very proud of their work. They certainly work very, very hard. It's a long season. They travel a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a very it's a physically demanding sport as well. So thanks for joining us, and the board certainly hears your call. I'm speaking for, I certainly hear your call on behalf of the board with respect to making sure we support the team. We had a comment from Mrs. Hone. She was asking about a fields feasibility study, which actually was pretty significantly delayed. We did actually just recently get that, so that's in the Fields Committee's hands. We're in the process of evaluating it ourselves too, and we will make that available publicly shortly. The fair question about Juneteenth. And this has actually been kind of a bit of a source of confusion around when schools should really observe Juneteenth. New Jersey, before it was made a federal holiday, New Jersey, if I remember my facts correctly, and please fact check me here, but I believe, if I remember correctly, Juneteenth was made a holiday by New Jersey first, and it was ordered in New Jersey, and it still is. I just fact checked myself here online that it's observed in New Jersey officially on Friday, June 12th, this year, Friday, June 20th, but the Friday after. So that's where we're observing it. The option, if we chose to go with a federal observation, it would have pushed graduation into the following week. And we have a calendar committee that brings us all into consideration. I know, Ms. Murphy, I know you're a part of the calendar committee. You want to make sure I'm speaking accurately here?
So that's correct. So New Jersey did start observing this on the third Friday of June, before the federal government started acknowledging it as on the 19th. So the district very frequently acknowledges it on that Friday. I think if you look at most of our calendars next year, it is observed on the 19th, which I think happens to be that Friday as well. Oftentimes it does fall on the Friday. We have acknowledged that we've heard this request from the community before, and it is a consideration that has come to the calendar committee. So in future calendars, you may see a shift to it being on the 19th, regardless of whether that's on a Friday or not. It's difficult to change the calendar for at that time of the year so late, because a lot of things are booked as soon as the calendar comes out 2 years in advance. So it's difficult to make switches, but we do acknowledge that we are observing that day, regardless of whether it's on the 19th itself or on the Friday that is acknowledged in New Jersey statute for the holiday, and it is an important acknowledgement in the community.
And to be clear, the district is closed on that Friday. It's not just schools.
and I think I think it's important that when we set this calendar, for the last 2 years. We had set them 2 years before that, and it was the third Friday of June for New Jersey to observe. So, and we had talked last year about really rethinking that and asking the calendar committee to do the same. So, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And then we had Mr. Z with us, who was raising concerns about enrollments and limitations on sections of kindergarten. He was mentioning Willard School. So if anyone who's concerned or interested in this, we do happen to have a particularly tight enrollment schedule at the kindergartens on the west side of town right now, particularly at Ridge and Willard. So we're evaluating the current requests. We are judicious about avoiding adding additional sections and teachers after we close registration. And there's two primary reasons for that. The first is economically, we want to make sure that we have a basis for closing a section, because otherwise, if we have too many sections, we run out of room, and we also really strain our payroll. We do have to be responsible to the taxpayer with respect to the number of sections that we offer. But that said, it's also very difficult to recruit and secure an excellent teacher for the start of school past a certain time. So even if we were to decide that we wanted to hire a teacher right now, there's usually a 60-day clause that teachers have in their contract, and often we'll hire a teacher and they won't be able to start at the beginning of the school year. So it's important that we're able to make these decisions early on. That said, we are aware of a couple of difficult family circumstances that have been arising because of late registrations and not that that's always someone's fault. That sometimes it just happens by nature of, again, like in this case, someone's just purchasing a home. And we are reviewing all those right now. Dr. Fenwick has been a part of that process with me, and so we are observing that closely, and we'll be getting back to the families that have reached out, including Mr. Z, by the end of the week with some sort of clarity on our position.
So Dr. Short, just two comments on that. One is for the cruise request, will that be considered by the finance committee? There was some request from ice hockey also, so crew and ice hockey, would that be? Can you just at least check the what's possible at the next finance committee meeting as an agenda item?
Yeah,
Would that be
so I think where we left it last is that with respect to our analysis of parity of athletic-based programs, that the budget was struck for next year, so we were not going to entertain any requests for any kind of funding changes for next year, for the coming year, I should say. But as we build the next year's budget, it's been on the finance committee's agenda, and I will continue to raise this point because I want to have plenty of time to discuss the extent to which we feel like we are providing parity within our programs and any programs that we might want to try to make adjustments for.
Okay, and so thank you for that. And for the kindergarten registration deadline, I noticed some comments online that some parents or some families have submitted all the paperwork in time, and immunization records were submitted late because online it mentioned that immunization deadline was June 1st. So these families submitted the immunization records closer to June 1st or within the last week or two, but the original submissions were not delayed. So maybe we should check that if we are treating cutoff, and if there are more families than who have just reached out to us, right? We can't just act on the families that reach out to us. It should not be that if somebody comes to the board meeting or talks to us, we fix that as a process. If there are more families who submitted everything on time and just not the immunization records because our website said that can be submitted until June 1, those should be treated equally, I think.
We did actually reevaluate that because when that claim initially, a case that was similar to that, if not that case, was brought to my attention, and my understanding was that it was purely a late registration. Then when it came back to my attention that it might have been what you described, I then asked everyone to go back and look into the system to find out when the first entries were made. And in one of those cases, one that fits the description that you're bringing up, it did in fact register earlier. In most of our technological systems, when someone starts an application, we can see it. We have kind of an archaic system whereby these registrations come in, and we don't see anyone who has a registration in process. So we're kind of taking a couple steps back and going and checking and making sure that no one is being treated like a late registrant if they had started before and they just maybe forgot. I mean, we all make mistakes. I was using an example of how I actually went to go get my car serviced the other day and realized that I never pushed the make appointment confirm button. And so I showed up there to get my car fixed and they had no record of getting my car fixed. So we all make those kinds of mistakes. So we as a school district want to make sure that if we're doing something that has such an impact as closing a section in a school, that we're making sure that we know the entirety of who is out there who may have already started registration, maybe just had a mistake. Okay. So that's when I say we're reviewing all of these. Are multiple, there are just some late registrations, to be clear, and there will be other late registrations. Those happen. But in the meantime, we just want to make sure that anyone who is who has really put in a good faith and tried to do their due diligence, that we're working with them as best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Presentations, the state of the school address.
All right, very good. Now, board members, do you prefer for me to just sit here and give the presentation sitting? Would you prefer to look across at me over there, or do you have a preference?
Go over there because it's easier to see.
Well, I'm looking at my screen here or there. It doesn't really matter.
I'm just gonna go over there because I can. See
Oh, yeah, by all means. Yeah, for all of you, please feel free to travel over there. Mr. Emore, is there a preferred spot for me to be in for this particular presentation? It's a long one. All right, he's a wizard. He says it's okay. We can be wherever. I'll just stay here. This is where I typically present from then. As much as I like to gesture and point. You gonna cap me? What is my cap? In all seriousness, we could be here for a very long time in this presentation. I endeavor to not keep us here for too long. I would love for my speaking portion of this to be less than a half an hour. I don't know that I can actually do that. There's so much here, but if you will let me try, I will make my best effort. That said, I know that you all will have questions along the way, and I don't want to leave you in this position where you are feeling like you can't fully process what's on the slide. So my suggestion would be, just this is all my preface to before I actually start being formal with my presentation, is that board members, that if something in the presentation comes across is not fully intuitive and you just need some clarification, by all means, please feel comfortable just asking for a clarification. You will no doubt have some pithy comments that we want to get into. So I would ask that you maybe take some notes while we present, because there's more data here than there was last year. And some of the later data might answer your question on some former data. And then that can help me to move through it a little more quickly, and we can spend more of the balance on the time with your questions, talking about the ideas that you have and maybe any comments from the public as well, as opposed to running the risk of being too digressive. And then by the time we get to the end, we're all really fried. Okay. All right, great. So welcome everybody. This is the 2025 State of the Schools address. I've been giving these addresses this is my second address in Ridgewood, and it is my 8th address of my career. I think actually it might be the 7th, because I think we did one in the fall one year. So, but these addresses, while they give a nod and they allude to the political addresses that our presidents and our governors give, the State of the State, State of the Union. The reality is that those speeches are in fact political speeches. They're very much about touting all the successes of the current administration and all the ways that they've made everything so much better. I actually strive to not do that in this presentation. I think there will inevitably there will be some highlighting of some things that are going well, but I also strive to identify and to put forth data in such a way that we can identify the areas that we still need to improve. One of the virtues of being a superintendent is that I'm an appointed official, so I don't have to worry about running for election. I work through the board, I report to the board evaluates me annually, they guide me, they give me feedback, and I work through them. And then otherwise, my job is to support everyone the best I possibly can, and also be very transparent about the areas that we need to continue to improve in. So I present this to you with enthusiasm, but also humility, and also with a tremendous amount of respect. for the people who are involved in this process. So I want to start with some thank yous. The first and foremost people that I want to thank here are our faculty and staff. They are the ones who do the actual work. All of us up here, everyone at Ed Center, and even the principals in the schools, we all exist to support the faculty and staff who work directly with the kids. So I begin by thanking them and giving them credit for all the work that they do day in and day out and bringing their enthusiasm and their energy and their passion and care for the kids. Then I want to thank the Board of Education. You are definitely so critical to the operation of a school district, and yet very few people don't really quite fully understand. Many people don't quite fully understand what a board member does. I appreciate you all very much, and I think the community has really put their faith in the right people to lead the district. The presentation itself, I want to highlight a few folks who were really critical and instrumental. And there were others who were instrumental as well, but these are the folks that I particularly engaged with that I feel really deserve a specific naming. Honor Freiberg has done a tremendous amount of work in evaluating all of our helping with our charts and graphs and getting into the data. She's our grants writer, but also our testing coordinator, and she's just really great with data visualizations. And she's always enthusiastic about a challenge. Sarah He and Georgia from our technology department, they do love their data. They've been wonderful about processing data, and we have multiple different platforms that we visualize data through. They have been really just enthusiastic. Every time I come up with a challenge, they get excited, which is a great culture to have. Christine Corliss has done a tremendous amount of work with our surveys, and they make a significant part. Christine's here with us tonight. They make up a significant part of our data that we work from, and they are a critical accompaniment to our academic performance data because they give us a window into the experiences that our students have. What's the human experience, not just that performance metric. And then Mr. Ross, who is our new director of curriculum instruction, as effective as of January, has just done a tremendous amount of work. I really appreciate all the work you did pulling it all together. He also ran several meetings with our administrative team. Too many to mention. So many members of our administrative team came to those meetings, gave great feedback, asked critical questions, really helped to improve the way that the data was demonstrated. And Mr. Ross took a real lead on that. So thank you for all your work in coordinating all that and organizing that. And I reserve the right to make adjustments to this slide if I forgot anybody who needs to be mentioned and called out. I also want to thank our school principals and supervisors. If the faculty and the staff are the most important people with respect to the students, then the principals are immediately behind them. They're the ones who are they're kind of they're like the parent of the school. They've got to be the one who is really ultimately is responsible for everything that happens in that school, and they do a tremendous job. And then at the secondary level, especially where things get bigger, but also at the elementary level, we have supervisors who do a tremendous amount of work in supporting our teachers, in making sure that professional development is planned appropriately, that the resources are allocated appropriately. And of course, everyone has to be evaluated multiple times in the year. So that's a large effort that everyone is very much involved in. But most importantly, our principals and our supervisory team is a very strong team of professionals, and they have excellent rapport with our faculty. And that is critical for us having a supportive culture and a place where people love to come to work and help kids. Our Ed Center team here, many people don't even know who they are, and yet they keep the district running. So thank you to the Ed Center team. You're all like this is like my school. They're all my people. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of kids, but they come around every now and then. Ridgewood families are incredibly important in supporting all of us. Of course, it's the engagement of our families that make our schools great. Village of Ridgewood representatives are wonderful. I'm very grateful we have Mayor Paul and Deputy Mayor Pam with us here. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate having you. I know you can't stay for too long, but I really appreciate your effort to be here. And then we don't get to meet, you all don't get to see them very often, but I see them a lot. Bergen County Department of Education is just a really tremendously supportive organization. We're grateful for them. And then of course, last but not least, our students who are the reason we are here. So our objectives today are to develop an evidence-based community understanding. This is about really building common understandings about annual academic performance trends, student, staff, and parent perceptions of the school experience. That's through surveys. And new this year, we have staff and community survey responses. And then we want to look at, as we annually do, look at rankings and rating systems, although many of them have been very slow to update this year, so there's not a lot of new information there. I'd also like to identify areas of strength and areas for improvement. And I'd like to leverage the Vision 2030, the new plan and vision, to identify our next steps. But the main focus of today is to draw on our collective intelligence as a community. There's so much to see here, and we need your insights and your institutional knowledge to help us to see what the data, see the story that the data tells in its entirety. So if you're not aware, we have a new mission and vision. The mission statement is that the Ridgewood Public Schools, in partnership with the community, is committed to the pursuit of excellence and innovation that enables all students to maximize their individual potential and become lifelong learners. Our vision statement is that RPS will create an inclusive community that empowers students to explore opportunities and shape their futures. We saw a great case study of this vision and mission with our students who were here earlier sharing their inventions. I'm not going to read these, don't worry. These are our district goals. For anyone who views this presentation asynchronously, I want you to have the ability to reference the goals in their entirety, but we gave a presentation on these goals last week. So I just memorialized them here. The first goal was about the strategic plan. The second goal is about building systems of support for students. The third was about academic systems, particularly making sure that all students are achieving academically. And then, of course, goals related to our finance and facilities. Those are just there for your reference. Of course, you're familiar with Ridgewood by the numbers. Depending on what number you're looking at and when the number was pulled, we usually hover around 5,500 students. And of course, we have a variety of sites, and we are in a district factor group, which actually is a term that's not used anymore, but it's classification of schools that has the lowest enrollment of economically disadvantaged pupils, which means that those pupils who are disadvantaged in our community have a particularly challenging time. We have some recent recognitions. We've achieved several Sustainable Jersey for Schools. Our own Christine Corliss, who's here, was named the 2025 Communicator of the Year by the New Jersey School Public Relations Association. We continue to get high marks in a variety of the ranking systems. And I actually just realized this when I was going through this today, but we didn't get a chance to put it on here, that Great Schools, which is one of the ranking agencies, once again recognized Ridgewood High School as a great school. Our enrollment, you can see by the grade levels here. We also looked at this using a little bit of a different visualization at our budget presentation, but you can see that our enrollment numbers in our lower grades are a little smaller. We do expect a bit of a bounce back next year with the COVID birth rate increase, but it's not really. It doesn't. There's no indicators that we're going to be seeing a significant increase in our enrollment. That said, Ridgewood, there's a lot of demand to live in Ridgewood, so we also don't expect to see a significant decrease in our enrollment. We are a little bit more male than we are female among our student body. Economically, we are about a little under 3% of our students are registered as economically disadvantaged. Probably a few more are, but those are the ones that are registered. And then we have a 13% approximately IEP classification rate. Our home languages, you can see here that we have Korean and Spanish are rather large in our community. We do have Japanese spoken as well, but English is the predominant language, and we have a variety of others. Race, we are predominantly white, but our Asian population has been increasing. We're up to 21%. We have a lot of students who identify as multiracial. So that's a hard category to understand because you could be a lot of different combinations of races, but that is nevertheless a category that we keep track of. Our Black students, with respect to this survey, when we get to the surveys, we're a relatively small portion of the survey, but there was sufficient enough to report on them, sufficient enough of them to report on. And they have they report a little bit of a different experience with the schools. So we'll talk about them as a disaggregated group. And then we have about 11% of our students identifying as Hispanic. And remember, Hispanic is a cultural identification, an ethnic identification taken by the government, which is recognized separately than Asian. So you can be Hispanic in any other racial category. So getting right to academics and assessments. Some of this will seem very familiar, and I'm going to try to move through some of the parts that we've already been reported to the board somewhat quickly. For those who are viewing from home, I apologize if I seem like I'm moving a little bit quickly, but we have already discussed these at prior presentations. The data that we look at, the generally available data is the NJSLA assessments, the AP data, PSAT, SAT, ACT. These are all publicly reported. Then we have the NJSLA Science. Linkit formative assessments are local assessments. We pay for them, but but we administer them locally. So that's not public data. We do use that for some analysis. Graduation rates and college acceptances are also public information, at least to the extent that we report them. So we started doing this model some years ago. We call it the stable cohort, but basically what it is we look at group cohorts of kids, and the state, when they report out how a grade is doing based on their academic proficiency, they include every student who's in that grade for the whole year, which means that it includes students who just moved to the district, and it also doesn't include students who just moved out of the district, right? So what we wanted to do here is we wanted to be able to evaluate cohorts of students over time, and we wanted to exclude any individual students who left the district and we can no longer account for their grade, or students who were new to the district and we can't account for their grade. It's not that those students don't matter. They get reported by the state. But we're not trying to evaluate the individual students here. We're trying to evaluate our programs. And if we're evaluating our programs, then we really need to look at, from a curricular perspective, primarily. If we're looking from a curricular and instruction perspective, then we really need to see what our cumulative effect is on those students. Otherwise, we could have, and I had this happen in my prior district, I had a significant change in a specific subgroup's performance. And it just so happened that we had 10 students move in from other districts who all identified in that subgroup, and most of whom were not proficient. And it skewed our numbers, and it looked like we were really failing this group, when in reality, we just happened to have a demographic shift. So we're trying to understand how our programs go among students who stay with us. So the different color lines represent different cohorts of students. And we can only look at so many cohorts because looking from 22 to 24, there's only so many grades that have taken the test over that period of time. This is our ELA scores. And generally what you can see is that if the scale score goes up, we generally assume that means that our programs are more effective. There are some limitations to this. Theoretically, every test is normed a little bit differently, and as it's normed and standardized, and we perform fairly high, theoretically, they can make it harder to get a higher score, but we're just kind of operating off the assumption that an increase in score is a good thing and a decrease in score is a bad thing. And just to give us a general sense, and again, it's not a perfect sense, we include the state average trend and we include the New Jersey class of 2030 trend because we noticed that our class of 2030 had a drop at the end. So we wanted to see if that was something that was being felt across that cohort in general. So we talked about this last time. I think there's a little bit of a tweak there with the New Jersey class of 2030 being added. But you can see that there's generally a positive increase, but that we identified last time that there are a couple of places where we're seeing these decreases. So we saw a decrease with our high schoolers. We saw a decrease with the transition to 7th grade, and particularly and our transition to 8th grade and 9th grade as well. We break this out as well by our different subgroups to get a sense as to how our students are doing by subgroup. The purpose of this slide is not to indicate how far away they are from the state average. We know that different students from different subgroups have different reasons for performing the way that they do. We're trying to identify trends here. So the state average is being included to show that the state average scale score had a somewhat of a gradually increasing trend. So when we compare that with our other students, we can see, so for example, our economically disadvantaged students between 23 and 24, their scores went down somewhat. And these are students who were with us the whole time, whereas the state went up somewhat. They're still higher performing than the state average. And to be clear, these are economically disadvantaged students here, but that's the state average for all students. So to be clear, our economically disadvantaged students in Ridgewood are performing better than the average student across the state, non-economically, or not necessarily economically disadvantaged.
Just tell us what ML stands for.
Oh, that's multi-language learner.
Thank you.
So that's become we used to use English language learner or ESL student. Now we use ML. This is a stable cohort in ELA by race. We seem to see positive trends and growth across all races that were identified here. We did combine our Hispanic population, our Black population, which is I'm just going to call that out because that's a little, as I said before, Hispanic students, there could be overlap between Hispanic and Black students, but we're combining them because the numbers are very small otherwise. We did the same thing with math. This is where we saw a bit of a concerning trend, particularly with respect to students going from from 5th grade to 6th grade. We saw that with the class of 2030. And then we saw that trend again, which we already talked about this slide earlier in the year. Something else that came up recently, though, is we noticed if you look at the class of 2032, the purple line, so see they just kind of show up in the middle because they took the test for the first time in 2023. That line is going down between 2023 and 2024. That's a 3rd to 4th grade transition. So that was something that we didn't talk about at the board level last time around. However, the supervisors and the elementary principals did pick it up. And I asked them, I followed up with that with a question about this and was very pleased to hear that they've already have a variety of interventions in place to try to watch that data more closely. And already the Linkit formative assessment that the kids took before they went into the NJSLA this year was significantly higher than it was the prior year, right? Did you want to comment on that, Mr. Ross?
Just very quickly that the Linkit C data, which is the last test of the year, the data was very promising, and we know that that has to have a pretty strong predictive correlation, and those scores were up. So we are optimistic about this year's performance on NJSLA.
And they did identify some specific areas, right?
Yes, and so part of this was identifying really across the elementary level the need for additional team training at Conquer Math. So entire teams are being sent, and that would include a special ed teacher too for those co-taught classes. So that's been in process for really well over a year. And also Miss O'Neill, who's our math supervisor, has been targeting specific areas in the curriculum and tweaking it with the data. So that's actually part of our curriculum writing process. So it's really been a proactive process that I think is very positive.
Great, thank you. So the math stable cohort by IEP and economic disadvantage, again, you can see here we have our IEP and EED students performing very close to the state average. That state average is inclusive of all students, not just IEP or economically disadvantaged students. But the trends are not consistently positive, so it's something we're looking at closely. You can see the RPS. We wanted to give you a sense of comparison to the rest of RPS, and we did see a little bit of a dip here. And this is where we've talked consistently about we don't have a major problem in math, but we are concerned that we don't see that same level of positive growth that we see in ELA right now. Again, it's just kind of seen, no matter how we slice this data, we just are not seeing the level of growth in scale score that we want to see, whereas the state average scale score is going up. AP participation and performance. I know this looks a little bit busy, but we tried to group and color code by tests so that it was a little easier to compare. So on the left, you have AP enrollment. So the blues are for all of New Jersey, and the yellow to the red is RHS, and it's year upon year. So that's AP enrollment over time first for NJ, AP enrollment over time for RHS. And what you can see is, can you see my cursor if I move it around? So what you can see here is that AP enrollment has been pretty flat with a slight increase in New Jersey over the last few years. For RHS, it's actually increased over the last few years. We had a little bit of a dip off over last year, but over the course of the last 4 years, we've seen a pretty good increase. Now, you'd expect that if you're having more participation, that your scores would go down, and we see more exams taken across the state. We see the exam taken as well. Again, remember, you can take the AP test and not take the exam. RHS has a pretty high participation rate. Most kids sit for the exam. And then the score of 3 or more, 3 is passing on an AP test. So you see that the state passing rates have gone up, even though enrollment's gone up. And we've seen the same thing at RPS, so at RHS. So it seems to be a positive trend. More kids are sitting for the test, more kids are taking the test, and more kids are passing the tests. This is SAT, PSAT, and ACT. Again, this is participation right now. So this is getting a sense as to which tests our kids take. There's been a pretty significant decline across the state in students taking the ACT. We've seen a decline here, although more of our students do take it. Same thing with the PSAT. With the PSAT, there has been a pretty significant increase, pretty high level of participation across the state. And yet we consistently seem to be decreasing in our participation, which is a trend that doesn't quite make sense for us when you consider the fact that when you look at SAT, we have increased more students, in fact, taking the SAT.
So Dr. Schwartz, on this one, I've pointed out a couple of times before on our messaging and how we are creating a messaging for PSAT, Maybe we should look at, have we changed any of the messaging? Instead of saying that it's a practice test, don't worry. Have we highlighted the benefits of scholarship, practicing for SAT, or prep for SAT? And there are a lot of other benefits of national merit scholarships.
Does anyone have a response to that right now? That's certainly something that.
I was just wondering, we had talked about moving the PSAT to doing it during the day, a school day, rather than a weekend. Did that happen this year, or is that still something we're discussing?
I don't believe that happened this year. No, no, we have a, no, I don't believe we've done it this year.
Okay. I know that was one thought to increase participation for the very reason, Sarab, that you have said, that this is a good test to take as a practice. It also opens the door maybe to a scholarship, merit scholarships. And so even though perhaps it's not seen that way because of the SATs being optional at a lot of colleges. And, I don't know how much that plays into it, but if we did it during a school day, would that make a difference?
I think that's a very good suggestion. And also, even before SATs were made optional, which again, a lot of colleges are now going back to compulsory or required, our messaging for PSATs was always, don't worry about this test, it's not important. So I've been bringing this up every year about that messaging, and that messaging at that score needs to change, and it needs to, students need to be informed about that from at the end of 9th grade, because this is a 10th grade, I think 10th grade test, right? It needs to be, they need to be informed very early that that test will be coming up, and here are the ways you can prepare for it, instead of a week before that, hey, there's a test and don't worry about it. That whole philosophy, it's a shift of philosophy about this test.
Thank you for that. So this is a breakdown of our SAT scores by subject. You can see reading and writing is fairly flat. Math has had a little bit of a decrease there. Our scores are generally pretty high. We'll get to that in one more second. You can see here a trend over time. We obviously don't have 2025 data. We had seen a steady increase in our state ranking. This is a list of all schools that take the test, including magnet schools. So you have to sort of kind of go through and in your mind kind of recognize that the vocational technical schools and the county schools, they are able to recruit students and they select students based on how well they do. Oops, sorry about that. So, but there's movement, of course, in here each year. But we did see a decrease in our score from 182 to 283, now down to 265. It does seem like the overall scores have gone down significantly across the board, but our rank score has gone down a bit.
That may be an impact of the digital SAT, but I don't know if that was started there. But if there is this pattern from last 3 or 4 slides that 23 went higher for everything from compared to 22, and then 24 is lower. Except this one where everything is, so 23 is higher, 24 is lower. So 23 is significantly higher than 22.
Well, yeah, the thing we do have to keep in common with this is cohort based. So it's not the same kids year over year. So you could have, and we do see variations in cohort. Okay. So it's hard. We can't necessarily, that's why we try to look at multiple years. If we see a consistent decrease, that would be concerning, but we do have to look at it as a trend.
Right, but from the trend perspective, in the previous slides, you were showing that for the state, everything went up from 22 to 23 and then 24. Even the slides, 2 slides before, for the state data was going up, right?
What I'm saying is that last year, so this is last year's seniors. So it's not the current year seniors. And each cohort, they even as big as they are, they do have their mean performance has variance. Every cohort's going to have your kids who really struggle and your kids who are absolute high flyers. But that, you know, the way that the middle is skewed is this is just a mean score. It's just an average. And it's heavily impacted by the amount of kids who take the test. This is just a raw ranking by just their average score. If a school district didn't promote kids taking the SAT and the only kids who took the SAT were their highest achieving kids, then they would be right at the top of the list. So it does stand to reason that as we promote more participation, we could see potentially a decrease in our average score. We do this comparison where we look at the NJGPA to see if there's like any kind of significant variation between or correlation between the assessments, like how representative is the SAT score as compared to like an NJSLA score. Unfortunately, we don't, the way they report NJGPA, I'm sorry, I said NJSLA, I meant NJGPA, which is the high school graduation requirement. When the way they report the NJGPA is they don't report any averages above 90. And we're pretty consistently near that 90 mark. So this isn't actually, we did it again just so we could have it again, but I think we probably will discard this slide because it's not particularly useful because we can't see exactly, there's no variation. Like we can't compare, like Milburn's number 2, their math SAT is 700, they're 90, but so is everybody else above that. So I don't know that this is a slide that's going to be very helpful in the future. I will tell you though, if you take a look at Highland Park right there, I'm kind of familiar with the Highland Park population of students, and you can see that their NJGPA score is 69.2, but their average SAT score is 649. Yet our NJGPA score is 88.1. The NJGPA is all students. So that signals to me that in Highland Park, you probably have a sample of people taking the SAT that are not representative of the remainder of the student body. These are the ACT scores by subject. ACT is hard to evaluate. We report on it because people take it, but there's big jumps between scores. I mean, it only goes up to, what's the top score on ACT? 36. Thank you. So the graduation between each score is pretty big. So it can look like a big jump, but that could be just one difference in average. They're not reported in decimals. They're reported, the average score is reported in integer.
So for both SAT and ACT, are we reporting here the students' super score, or is it, are we taking average of all scores, or is it just?
This is the publicly released average score. So I'm not sure how they calculate, how that's calculated behind the scenes, but this is what's released to us as the average score by the College Board.
Arguably, you could have one kid taking it 3 different times. You know, we don't know whether or not that's
Right, whether they're super.
Because kids
I
take
mean,
it multiple.
is it number of tests? I believe it's number of tests.
Number of tests taken.
Yeah, because I don't believe that. I mean, well, I'll fact check that.
Okay.
But I don't believe that there's any system that they use to create an average score for a specific student because they don't work in. And I'm basing that off the fact that they don't work off percentages. They won't give us a percentile.
But when they report it to college, or when students report it to college, they report the super score. So if a student took ACT twice and their English score was 36 once and math was 34, next time their English is 33 and math is 36,
yeah,
it's reported 36.
Yeah.
So that 33 and 34 are discarded.
Hmm.
So only super scores are reported.
That's a great question. So the more that they take it, the more they practice, the better they get. But it might
Not
could-
necessarily,
but it could
yeah,
it
but
could
yeah.
it could hurt our average because they
If we are reporting all of them,
super score.
if we are reporting all 3
If they're
tests,
reporting all of them.
yes.
Yeah. So the more that you practice, you're going to suppress the district's average.
If that's how it's being reported. If they are reporting the
yes.
super score, then it's fine.
Yes.
But if they are reporting all tests and all average based on all tests, then yes.
That's a great, I don't have an answer. That's a great question. Yeah, we'll find that out. Graduation rate is one that we actually dug into after the state of the schools last year. We got a really interesting answer. So it looks as though when you look at our graduation rate, like we have a 97% graduation rate. So one might logically assume, oh my goodness, 3% of our students don't graduate. They drop out. That's crazy. I can't imagine. That's a lot of kids, right? That's like, yeah, that's like 60 students. Yeah. But the reality is we dug into this and it's our students, it's actually our score is suppressed because of students with disabilities who are in the 18 to 21-year-old program. And I've learned more about this. We've been working with some other superintendents and questioning the state about it. And the Department of Education in Trenton does not want to give an alternate graduation certificate. So because they don't do that, they have to report students who are part of the 18 to 21-year-old program as not graduated but on track. And there's really no way to find this out from the public's perspective. We had to go into our reports and look up who the actual students were who were being reported under the status of on track, not graduated but on track. And we actually looked up the names, and they were all of our students who are either in steps or who are out of district in 18 to 21-year-old programs. And yet they're counting against our because they're not counting as graduates, which is unfair to them, first of all. But secondly, it's creating a false appearance for the school district. And further, any students who are welcoming to families that have students with these types of disabilities and need these types of programs are now going to be penalized in their public presentation of their graduation rate. So I'm looking forward to raising this issue a little bit more. This has come up just very recently. One of our local Bergen County superintendents actually took this down to the U.S. Department of Education as well. But we're going to start lobbying to have some sort of an additional way to recognize these students as graduating, and also so that there's school districts who are making welcoming places for these places aren't being represented poorly. So here you go. Ready? So this is the 5-year rate. It gets a little better because sometimes students are only in school for an extra year. So what we do is this is a new slide. We calculated our own actual rate. So this is the state as reported. This is, and bear in mind, this isn't down to 0. We want to be able to show the variance. So this is 80% up to 100%, right? So we're reported at about 97%. So this is about 97%. Our actual is about 99%. So what we did was we just actually took the on-track continuing, I'm sorry, that's the term. We just removed the on-track continuing students and recalculated our graduation rate. And that's really what our graduation rate is and should be reported as. This year we wanted to track dual enrollments. We do have dual enrollment is an opportunity that students have to receive college credit when they take a class at the high school level. So we just wanted to see what our trends were here. And we broke it out by groups as well. So district-wide, you can see here, we've had an increase in students signing up for dual enrollment courses. And then if you look across our demographic groups, you can see how some of our trends break out. Bear in mind that some of these groups, like I said before, are quite small. So can be a lot of variation in the data, but it is something interesting to look at. We look across, especially like our economically disadvantaged students. They're taking fewer of those courses, yet they have some of the most to benefit from those courses. So that's something we need to look at.
It's because it's $300 a course. You know that, right? So.
Oh, yes.
So it kind of makes sense that if you're economically.
Well, it's $300 to get the credit.
Yeah,
But
the college would be 4,000 minimum for the same credit.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that if you're economically disadvantaged in any way, you may not have the extra money to pay for the dual enrollment. I mean, to me, it just makes sense, right?
But
So
that
if
may
your
also-
child is taking those classes anyway, it costs, another 300, 600, whatever it is per class. I think it's 300 per class through like Bergen Community. My point being that opportunity may be foreclosed to families who cannot afford it. That's all.
It's a very valid
So it's
point.
something to look into, and it's something that, to see, what if anything can be.
It's a very valid point, but maybe we can check with Bergen Community College that they may have a tuition waiver program for economically disadvantaged kids.
Then we should make our families aware of
Right,
it, because
but-
when you get the notification, that's not in there.
Right, but these are absolute numbers. So maybe we had less number of students in each of these categories.
It's true.
Right.
So
So what's
that's only
the
3% of the population.
right? So we may have less number of students in these categories. But it's not the percent of student; it's the absolute number. So absolute number can be distorted because we may just have less number or more number of students in that category.
You also, even APs though have a pretty high costs associated, and so students,
So-
students that do 2, 3, 4, 5. it
Yeah.
Add up. Mark, Dr. Troy, I would be curious to see like what is the trend compared to our other schools or national, because I believe from what I've seen, the dual enrollment programs are increasing in popularity. Because it's AP, you'll only get credit if you score well. Dual enrollment, as long as you complete with a decent grade, you'll get the credit. So I believe it's an increasing trend nationwide. I'd be curious to see, are we following that trend? Are we ahead of it? Are we behind it?
I
So
even
this is a
know
follow-up.
a couple of kids who took gap year. So after getting admission, they deferred the admission by 1 year and took classes at Burton Community College before going to college. So that way they can just carry the credits there, because most colleges allow up to 64 credits. By taking APs, you can take up to say 20, 23, 24 credits. So if you defer it by a year, colleges allow that once you are admitted. Take some credits at Burton Community College for a lower price, difficult subjects, and then take that to the college and graduate in 2 years from there. So people are coming up with creative ways.
creative
You
ways
still
to
have
use the
a
system.
degree from that college and it for much lower money. Yeah, much less amount of money.
So that's a great question. I'm not sure exactly how we compare nationally, so we can find that answer. But the question is also, to what extent are costs related to taking dual enrollment and AP disincentives for enrollment? Now, in my experience, usually it's you don't have to pay the money to enroll in the course, meaning that that's why some kids take the AP course, but they don't take the AP test. They don't want to pay the money for it. So I don't know exactly what our procedure is right now, but we'll find that out.
No,
and get
you
back.
don't need to pay the money to take the course, but
Yeah.
if you want to get the dual enrollment, you have to pay
You
I'm
gotta pay
thinking
the
like
fee, yeah.
$300
Yep.
is what I think per class. So, you're still getting the education,
Yeah.
but you're not getting the
Not
college
getting the
credit.
credit, yeah.
And that should be, when we're talking about that, we should at least acknowledge what it is. That's all.
Agreed.
But also there is one downside of dual credits that people should be aware of, which is some of the courses, some of the advanced program, when you go and apply for those, all of your college level grades are counted. So when you're in high school and you're taking a dual credit course, sometimes those teachers are a little stricter because they think that it's a college level course, so they grade it accordingly. Because you are in high school, you are taking a college level course, so it's more stricter, which is good. But then you may not have an easy A there, and so whatever grade you get there, that will be reflected in your all college level course transcript. So when you're applying for a postgraduate course, there you have to submit all college level transcript. So you have to be careful so it's not just getting the credit. You should only apply for that after half a year once you see that, yes, you are able to maintain a good grade in that course, then only you should opt for that. Otherwise, you may just pass that course and that grade will be on your transcript forever.
Lots to think about, for sure. Science, we know, has been a bit of a concern in that we're concerned that our students were not taking it very seriously at the high school level. We have, again, this is last year's scores, so not the current year scores. We saw a bit of an increase in our 5th grade scores. We were flat in 8th grade, and then we saw a very marginal increase in 11th grade. To be clear, again, remember, these are different cohorts of kids from year to year. So these could be normal variations. It's hard to know. But we certainly want to see those scores be much higher, but we are still significantly ahead of the state average. We'll continue to watch that trend. Getting into college acceptances, last year we shared this data. We actually looked for more up-to-date visualizations of acceptance data. We couldn't find any, and we were pretty inundated with all the data plotting that we were doing, frankly. So we weren't able to pull this data and rerun it. But suffice to say that the highly rejective trend of schools seems to be pretty high. I'm not sure how this has changed in the last couple of years. Last year was the first year that the Harvard UNC decision was impacted and affirmative action was peeled back. So it's not clear to me on a national scale what the impact of that was. Additionally, there has been quite a bit of shifting in federal policy regarding higher ed institutions. So it's not clear to me the extent to which that's played a role either. But suffice to say that we are seeing this trend of increased demand for universities, whereas most of these universities are not increasing the number of students that they enroll. So there's more people applying. Common App. We also have a note here about Common App. Makes it much easier for kids to apply for the schools, and as a result of that, we're consistently seeing this pattern of it being more and more people getting rejected in those schools. Plus, we're going to talk about rankings. Most of the ranking systems, the criteria that they use to determine how good a school is the number of people that they reject. So a lot of the schools welcome applications to reject because it improves their ranking, which then improves their funding, et cetera.
So I don't know RHS stats, but just in my friend circles or people that I know, from that perspective, I'm seeing a lot of wait lists getting accepted this year in Asian communities, Indians, Chinese, and Koreans, because these colleges they make the class, and where they're making the class, they want X number of students from New Jersey, every state, every country, every ethnicity, and so because of the new immigration policies, a lot of students are not coming from on the student visa. So those spots, when they are declining their offers, wait lists are moving up. So some students I know one person who has accepted 3 waitlist offers. So like accepted from one college and waitlisted at multiple places, then got accepted to second college, accepted that, then got accepted to third college, accepted that, and then finally going to the fourth college. So getting into so it's very fluid.
To your point, I was in touch with Christine Salerno throughout this process, and we were actually talking about the 2025 college acceptance data, and there was just no way to include it precisely because of that. There was just too much fluidity to it. Kids were getting off the wait list Friday, and so it's happening.
Yeah, a lot of students are getting off which is good for students who are born and brought up here.
As we move forward with this, I don't know how you're going to characterize what's going on this year, just generally. I mean, because, Friday, we might go home tonight and there might be something else happening that will change the landscape of college admissions. I'm just going to leave it at that. So I think it's something that we're going to have to be looking at. But I would be interested, as you go through these slides in the future, as colleges become more highly rejected and that line goes down, I think, we've had a similar trend, which could be concerning, except that I think we need to look at that nationally as well. Because I think that, I think we still do a very good job getting kids where they need to get to. But I think that when we're talking about the trends that we have with getting kids into college, we really should be comparing it to other districts that are similarly situated to us, that we always look at: the Highlands, the Milburns, the Tenafly, right? But also I think we should look at that nationally as well. I don't think it's in here. I don't expect it to be, but just moving forward, I think it'll be helpful.
So on these stats, we usually compare with national, that nationally the trend is going down. That's the slide that was presented. But I think for this one, we should really be comparing with other good North Jersey schools, public schools, and the Milburns and the other J districts. So we should be really comparing with New Jersey J districts
Yeah.
and large North Jersey schools, not just national, because
Thank
this
you.
is where we skip that comparison, which is where we should be comparing.
Thank you, Rob. You're absolutely right. That's what I meant to say.
So that's a hard comparison to visualize. So we'd have to talk about a creative way to do that. I'm sorry, these slides came in the wrong order. We'll fix them later. But we're supposed to give this slide first, where we talk about how test optional seems to be reverting and more schools are requiring testing. But legacy and athletics continue to play a big role. And of course, demand's up. So we updated our chart with last year's data. I was hoping to get this year's data in because there's been a lot of change. So I actually made a note up here. I didn't call them all out, but I mentioned Yale, Penn, Harvard, Rice, Stanford, and Princeton. We heard tonight also that one of our students was accepted to Caltech because those were places that we had not had acceptances to either last year or for a couple of years. And all of a sudden this year we do. Now, we know that there's a changed political climate, and the context and the economies of this has changed a bit. but we also know that we have different cohorts from year to year as well. So it's hard to interpret all of this. To your point about, I think that when we call out schools here, I think this is, we got some good feedback on this. I imagine that we could look at, if we could get access to another school's acceptance information at a granular level, then we could try to produce kind of comparable numbers. Because I think what we'd have to do is we'd have to take a grouping of schools that we considered hard to get into, and then compare how our school district is doing compared to students from their school district. And
I think that's published in the audit report. We published that, at least Ridgewood publishes that in the audit, or one of the annual reports, the admission.
Yeah, there actually, yeah, there is a lot of data in there. It probably
Right?
is available.
By colleges, it's available there. And on this slide, I had a comment that these numbers are cumulative for single student. Like, these are not unique students. So when
These
we
are
are
acceptances,
showing,
that's right.
yeah, so when we are showing RHS, we had 32 students total accepted. So that's not 32 is not, so it's not 32 students out of 475 students.
Yeah, and so
Right?
it's an acceptance analysis.
It's total acceptances. So these 32 may be 6 students. Like
So-
one student is accepted to 8 schools. So
We also do an enrollment yield analysis, which we don't have here, but
right, but how many students out of our, so when we compare with the national average that nationally there are, the average is 3% or 4% for good schools, the acceptance. And I would consider that all of our students are good students that are coming to Ridgewood. So we have 500 good students. Out of those 500, how many are going to top 25? How many are going to top 50? Not total acceptances. Unique number of students.
So again, happy to partner with you to think about how to visualize that, but I did look at the enrollment yield, and that's also a bit hard to process because the enrollment yield is lower than the acceptance rate, but it leaves out the amount of other schools that they went to. So for example, a student might get accepted to only 1 or 2 schools and waitlisted on the other, but we heard tonight from one of our students that they were given offers to like 4 or 5 of these schools.
Right. So that's where I'm not able to express. So when I see this 32 number, right? So that 32 is the total.
Which one?
All the way at the bottom. 2024 RHS admission total
Here?
is 32, right? Yeah.
Acceptance total.
Yeah, acceptance 32. That is not representing.
No, that's not 32 students, it's admissions.
That is 32 admissions. So that may be because this one student who had 7 or 8 offers or 6 offers. So this may be 10 students. Because same students are getting admitted to multiple good schools, right? So if it's only 10 students, then out of 497 students, 497 seniors, we have 10 students.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah. But again, what are we trying to ask? So we create data visualizations to try to answer a question.
So what percent of our students are going to top 25 schools? So that if it's 10 students out of 495, that's 2% of our students.
Just to be clear, though, we can look at that data, but that's also can be misleading too, because if someone gets a scholarship to a school that's not in the top 25, like a full merit scholarship versus paying for an acceptance to one of these schools.
So that would be whether they went there or not, but they can still be accepted. So that number can be based on acceptance.
But this is based on acceptance.
But this is based on acceptance of multiple students. So 3.
How do you limit? I'm just trying to highlight the challenge of this. I think the answer is you show both, right? I think it's helpful to just show both. Not one's not better than the other. But my point is that data is like looking at
it. Acceptances by unique students.
But again,
the problem is going to be, how do you say one student got accepted to Harvard or Yale, and which one do you pick when you identify the student acceptance data point?
As long as they are in 25. We are looking at 25,
so I think again, we're going to be here for a very, very long time if we figure out every single solution to every problem here at the table. But that said, I think what would be helpful, I imagine, is if we have the number of 32 acceptances, if we just say how many students constituted that many acceptances.
Exactly. How many unique
So it's a different number than where they actually enroll to. that's a number we'd have to manually derive. but
Yeah,
we
that's
could.
fine. How many
Yes.
unique students are represented in 32?
Okay.
And keep in mind, regardless, this is not a complete picture because this is all self-reported data.
Yes.
Yeah. So the school technically, as far as I understand, doesn't get the actual official acceptance information, as far as I know.
We do need the kids to input their data into the
Kids have to
score.
report it.
Yeah.
And you need to be careful about what conclusions you draw because there are kids who make choices about where to apply and where not to apply based on a variety of factors. So I just think that's important. So we can slice this a million different ways, but we need to be very clear.
Yeah, but those
I-
numbers would be same for all J districts. We can assume
Yeah.
that, right? So we are just comparing with all J districts, and if we say, okay, Milburn is sending 5% students versus if we are sending 2%, that's a clear differentiation.
I did Ivy League professional school admissions. I was director of admissions for 20 years. And we would, at Cornell Medical School, and we would look to see how did we rank up against Harvard and Yale and Stanford, and because we did the same kind of a thing. There were so many factors in a student's choice that was not necessarily, I'm going to Harvard no matter what. They didn't like Massachusetts, or they liked the hospital that they were connected with. So there's many other factors that influence a student's choice. And so it is good to see when they're multiply accepted, that means that's a top student. So there is some value to know that. And then the choices can be geography or big school, well, they're all big schools, but Boston versus California or whatever. So it's very hard to get in the minds of all these kids. But the fact that they're getting into these top schools signify that we are preparing students. And of course, we would like more. But some students say, I don't really want to go there. And they could be really top students and decide that's not for them.
All right. So the next one is just the next 25 schools. And again, so you can see the same thing. Obviously, these are less rejective and we have more students who are able to go there. So something to dig into for another time. But as an interesting takeaway, I think we can resolve the different questions here by just putting in a little asterisk about how many unique students made up those total admissions. All right, let's get into some survey results. So our student survey information, we had we had students take surveys from grades 3 to 12 across the schools. We had pretty good participation across the schools, not 100%, but close. Our elementary schools, the younger kids don't actually take the surveys. The scales were agree to disagree, strongly agree, or strongly disagree. Elementary students were asked, we changed up the surveys. They were asked a frequency-based scale this year. So we can't compare the elementary students' responses from year to year because we changed the scale, but we feel like this will be better for them moving forward. We also have a survey, Ms. Corliss leads a survey committee where we take feedback from the community to help us to, and from staff members and from students to help us make decisions about these surveys. You can see a pretty decent distribution by grade. Again, we had a little drop off in the 6th grade and 8th grade there. We want to make sure that we get better participation across those grades next year. And then this was our distribution of people who took it. So when we are going to do some disaggregation, but bear in mind when we say other, we're talking about American Indian, Pacific Islander, and then I might be missing another group there. And as well as our Black students, those are very small populations. So there could be an increased amount of variability in their score responses. You probably remember this from last year. There's a bunch of slides like this, so I don't want to overwhelm everyone. I think really this when I said before about I think this needs to be like a multi-day conversation, multi-meeting conversation because I think there's just a lot to process here. But we updated this data, and now for the first time we can look at longitudinal data from one year to the next. So, and you can also see it disaggregated here by group. So on the left, you see school year 24-25. And on the right, you see the disaggregation. So you can see how the different groups responded to the data. There's all kinds of insights to get from here. There's a lot of real pleasant surprises. Some traditionally underrepresented subgroups are actually reporting a more positive experience in school. For example, if you look down our economically disadvantaged marker, there's different categories where economically disadvantaged students who respond more positively. Same thing with our IEP students, and of course our different racial categories. On the whole, the responses are fairly stable. Oh, and by the way, this is only high school. So this data is actually different than last year. Not high school, only secondary school. It's high school and middle schools because we didn't change their scale from one year to the next. So we could actually compare last year to this year. So we have our 24-25, our last year's results and our 25-year results. We also gave these assessments at about the same time. We gave them both right after spring break. So we kind of had to try to make this as fair as possible.
Oh, I just, as I've mentioned before too, I find I find assigned schoolwork interesting and yeah. So maybe that's just being in school, but I like the idea that you have of maybe doing some focus groups to really sort of dig down into what is it about school that the work isn't interesting. When you hear our students speak, it's hard to correlate those lower scores. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And again, that category, I've been asking that question now for many years of students, and it's always low and it gets lower as the kids get older. And I do think it has to do with, I do think my hypothesis is that it is inversely correlated with the work getting more challenging. And I think in a good education system, we expect kids to learn hard things, right? And we tend to enjoy things that are of inherent interest or are a little easier to us. But when you have to learn something new, it's just very hard. So, and we all have to push through that difficult time. So that's a working hypothesis, but I look forward to exploring those.
I think you're right. I think that might be part of it, because if you look at 91 and 90% say they learned many new things this year. They were bored as heck, but they learned a lot of new things, right? Which I think that's really interesting. But on the, with regards to the focus group, I know when we were talking in the strategic plan committee, our students were very clear that they wanted more input, I think, in some of the curriculum, and they wanted more of a voice. So I think if we do that, that may inch that number up just a teeny little bit. That would be the
So
hope.
much of the curriculum is state dictated.
Right.
And I know, being a teacher in the classroom last year, we sort of debriefed this in the spring because some of those things, and we talked because, oh, math is so hard. I don't know why you have to learn all these things. They liked some subjects. They liked the reading and they liked social studies, but universally, anecdotally, they were grumbling about math getting harder, which it has to be. It's built.
I just wanted to add, I remember what the student on our committee said. He said, "We're not afraid to work. We just want the work to be meaningful." And so.
Yes, and of course, we'll always disagree perhaps as to what is meaningful, but that's a really good point. And if you engage them in the conversation, perhaps that'll change some of the numbers.
And if you look at schools preparing me for many career options after high school and my life as an adult, from 24 to 25, we actually saw a pretty decent jump there. Oh, something's wrong with our averaging here, I think.
School rules are fair. That jumped 7 points from 24 to 25, the last row, that they felt that was a big jump to me to see that.
That is a big jump.
To improve.
Someone want to run a calculator across these numbers here? These averages don't look like they're leading up correctly. Response rates no, I think it's about right. I feel like this should be like a 76 here. All right, sorry. Let's keep going. So interesting trends year over year. Go to the next slide here. Then we have belonging and relationship indicators. This is where we see this kind of interesting trend. I thought this was really interesting. You can kind of see when you look vertically, you can see that certain categories respond more positively than others. So particularly so you have our Black category student here, and you see there's a little bit of a different shift, and it's not all negative. So for example, I respect and value differences among my classmates are 100%, a lot of 90s here. adults at school care about me. They're answering 91% affirmative. So that's a really nice positive thing. But when you go down to students at my school work out disagreements, or students at my school respect and value differences, they had some of the lower scores. So again, it's interesting that we have some pockets of students who are having more positive experiences in some ways, but then more concerning responses in other ways. So I think this would be a great area to look at with a focus group as well.
Just want to mention, because I remember some of this conversation from last year, is that I respect and value differences among my classmates, and you have 99, 98, 100, right? I mean, across the board.
Mhm.
And then when you get to I am respected or other students respect, it drops pretty precipitously, even among all the groups. So there's got to be a disconnect there, and, you know, really an exploration of, well, what does it mean to respect?
Mhm.
You know, so I think it's a worthwhile conversation.
Great. Thank you for that. But again, seems like it would seem like a somewhat positive trend from one year to the next. So we'll see how that continues, and we'll keep working on making that continue. So these are the elementary school students. So we see sort of similar trends here, but we don't have 1 year to the next year data. But you see similar trends here again. Science schoolwork interesting. Again, pretty similar responses, right? Oh, something that I didn't share. If you go up here, I noticed this before, and you look at some of our 504 responses at the secondary level. So you'll see that some of our 504 scores are particularly or more negative. So you look at our IEP scores. On average, our IEP students actually provide more positive responses than our non-IEP. However, when you look at 504, these are disability plans, students in disability plans, they're lower. We have a lot of disability plans related to anxiety at the secondary level. And so I speculate that maybe that could be skewing some of their perceptions or their experiences in schools, or indicative of someone who's maybe having some trouble too. So regardless of which influences the other. So looking at our elementary students, again, very similar trends at the elementary level as well. Almost the same lines that kind of jump out at us. So let's get into our community surveys. We got 1,166 community survey responses. That's fantastic. Christine, thanks so much for your work on that. I mean, that is really remarkable. I've never had anywhere near that many survey responses from a community before. We had, it's anyone with a child in our schools would have received the survey. And do we send it out beyond the parents? Was it only parents that we sent it to? Just parents, okay. Be nice to be able to include some other folks, but we're asking questions about schools. So if they don't have kids in the schools, it'd be hard for them to answer. We did add a new, on the guidance of the folks who were on our survey committee, we did add neutral category this year, much to my chagrin. I wanted to be able to compare data from last year to this year, but it's a pretty valid argument that parents don't come to the actual schools. So there's going to be plenty of questions that they really don't have a basis for answering. So we felt like we should give them a neutral category. As a result of that, we really can't compare last year's scores to this year's scores, but we decided to do some analysis. We actually didn't do any analysis for the public on the outputs last year. So this is the community version of that data. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of different data, and we asked them very different questions. So not all of their data was conducive to this type of representation. And I'll show you that a little bit later. And the questions that we ask here are kind of all over the map. Everything from, I know what my child is learning about in school, to lunch, the classic topic of lunch, right? So my child purchases lunch in school. My child enjoys the meal and snack options in school. Obviously, it's not a priority for us that every single kid would purchase lunch. So that's not necessarily negative, but that's an interesting thing to note with the information that we asked. And then we do have a big indicator here. The professionals at my child's school provide an appropriate amount of behavioral and emotional support. And this is where we do see some variation in numbers here, particularly our economically disadvantaged families and our 504 families. We're reporting that much lower, but our IEP families as well. Some different ways to look at this data and look at some of the other questions that we asked. We asked some questions about rigor. Something we were concerned about is we want to get parents' perception as to like how rigorous do they perceive our schools? Are they, and should they be more rigorous or not? We do hear from time to time people saying that we should be much more challenging expect much more of our students, but some folks say the opposite. Interestingly, we have pretty clear majorities across all these different categories. We ask about ELA, we ask about homework difficulty, homework quantity, math instruction, music, science, social studies, technology, visual art, health, PE, world language. And pretty much across the board, we have pretty clear majorities saying that it is appropriate. But there are quite a few categories of folks who are saying that we should be more challenging, more rigorous with respect to ELA, homework quantity, homework difficulty, math instruction, science instruction, social studies, technology, and world language. And we have some folks saying that they should be less, but those numbers are much lower.
Did you break this down by grade levels or at least primary versus secondary?
We did.
Okay.
Oh, wait, this one, hold on a second. No, because we'd have to express it differently to be able to do it that way because we have appropriately more and less. So we'd have to convert this into like a numerical system and then we could do that. But no, it's not readily available that way. But that would be helpful. You're right.
Yeah. Interesting, right? Because you'd have a different view. I could tell you just looking back, I would have different views at different parts of my kids' careers. So.
Great point. Okay, let's do that. That'd be fun. Well, this is this sort of does that though. So like this is homework. All right, so homework per night and school, and so this is how much is appropriate. So this is what parents think they should be working on every night. And then how much time do we spend on, how much time do they actually spend on schoolwork each day? And it's by grade. So your grades are on the left, right? So obviously, for the most part, it's less than an hour up through about elementary school. But we do start to see, I'm sorry, let's start on the right. This is what people are reporting, okay? So they're saying their kids are actually spending less than an hour through about 5th grade and even through a lot of middle school. However, some students are definitely working for more than an hour or two between 3rd grade and certainly getting more up around 8th grade. At the high school level, the 1 to 2 hours seems to be seems to be kind of the center point, right? The central tendency with a little bit of bias toward more than 2 hours. In some cases, some kids some parents reporting their kids spend more than 3 hours on assessments or on homework. If we look at what they think is more ideal, it looks like there's a lot of consensus around less than an hour being appropriate at the elementary level. And as they get a little older in elementary, they should spend maybe a little more than an hour, some folks feel. Middle school, we should be going about that 1 to 2 hour mark, maybe 45 minutes to 2 hours would settle that divide there. And then at the high school, there seems to be this ideal sense that somewhere between an hour to 2 hours. And again, depends on course load, I'm sure. AP courses, I think we'd expect a lot more. But it's interesting to see that we're reporting that we have a lot of diversity around what should be done, but we do have and at the secondary level, we have a lot of diversity around what's being reported. And when there seems to be more reporting of kids doing more than 3 hours worth of work, then there are people that are saying that they should. We also asked about tutoring. We thought we'd look at this by grade band. So this, I think, is probably the most important metric because what this shows is the percentage of students who report ever using tutoring. So of course, it generally goes up and up and up and up and up, right? So by the current year's 12th grade, parents are reporting that 64% of students of those who took the survey have at some point used a tutor. There's the majority of them. Oh, something's wrong with the data here. This didn't distribute right and I missed it. I apologize. Well, if we jump over here, the total years of tutoring, we have it split out by what's being reported by the amount of tutoring they received at the different grade levels, how many years they actually had received. So by senior year, still, it was really only up to 2 years of tutoring that kids received. We had a big chunk of kids who got 2 to 4 years as well. And then, of course, for some kids, 4 to 6 years. And for some kids, 10% of those kids, it was more than 6 years. Maybe it's just perpetual tutoring. But this seems to signal that when we try to factor in how our students are doing, we have to acknowledge that parents are helping to close the gap for us, which means that we can't make the assumption that our instruction is the reason why they're as successful as broadly as they are, which has implications when we talk about a multi-tiered system of support. I think in an ideal world, I think this is a number that we want to see go down. Fewer kids would need tutoring. I don't know that it will ever go completely down because a lot of parents will proactively have their kids in tutoring.
What I was going to say is that there's a difference between needing tutoring and wanting tutoring to enhance, enrich, and or increase acceleration and get to a certain level.
Yep.
And so that's going to be tough to, I applaud you. I think it's important for us to try to figure it out, but it's important to acknowledge there are different reasons.
Yeah, we're not going to get it to zero, not in a place like Ridgewood for sure. But
Does the tutoring include SAT or PSAT? Or is it truly just tutoring on a subject?
so I don't know what happened to this chart, but as I recall, it was more heavily weighted at the elementary level, actually. Do you have the data up in front of you? Go ahead, answer. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and answer the homework question?
So I do have an answer to Ms. McCallie's homework question. This is about the percentage of parents who would like there to be more homework quantity. So that was 14.5% at the high school. The middle school average was 31%, and the elementary school average was 27%. So you do see a distinction in grade bands.
So definitely more of a sentiment at the middle schools that homework should be more rigorous.
In terms of quantity, I did not do
quantity.
difficulty, but quantity, yes. But I think you also see some similarity in those numbers for difficulty and
Yes.
quantity.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Thank you for pulling that quickly.
Go to Sheila's question, because I took the survey, right, as the parent of someone who is getting tutoring for standardized testing for college admissions. I did not read it that way. Okay. And I don't remember specifically how you questioned it, but I read it as tutoring to help with school related things, not tutoring for college admission exams. So for what that's worth, but I didn't, you know.
Okay. So this was just interesting. And I don't know if we need to follow up on this from year to year, but I found this, we asked parents a bunch of questions about technology, and we included facilities topics in here too, but we asked particularly the first 4 questions have to do with technology in the classroom. So the first one says, digital devices should be a part of my child's education across all subjects. Then my kid should use AI tools for creativity and productivity, AI for research. And then the next is my kids would benefit from more access to digital devices in the classroom. So you can see that these are not we'll get to the next ones in a minute. So these were not really well received, generally speaking. And as time is going on, as kids get older, there seems to be a warming of interest to more technology in the classroom. But it is pretty interesting. Now, this one says my student would benefit from more access to digital devices. I think that's a pretty easy throwaway question. I don't think anybody thinks their kid should be on a Chromebook more. I mean, so I think, well, I guess I shouldn't say I don't think anybody should. Clearly some people do, but I don't know what they mean by digital, if they mean a Chromebook or if they mean like generative AI tools. But it is interesting. There's some other questions down the line that give a window into I think it's the staff questions that give a window into AI and AI use. We'll get to that shortly. Facilities meeting our students' needs. Generally, it's pretty positive at the elementary levels, not so much at the secondary levels. There was a question here. There was, I guess, been a lot of debate around whether we need a performing arts facility at RHS. So this was thrown in there to just see once and for all if people actually were supportive of this. We can see at the secondary level, there is definitively more support than less support. And at the elementary level, there's definitely less interest in that. And then this got lumped at the bottom. It's another AI question. It says the risks of using AI in school outweigh the potential benefits. And that is really interestingly flat. And actually there seems to be a little more fear in middle school than there is across the high school, although with the exception of the 10th grade group. So I think more than anything else, just zooming out, this speaks to just generally there's still being a lot of concern and trepidation around how AI is actually going to play out in schools. All right, and then we have some staff data. So we have about 1,049, at least as of record today, 1,049 employees in the district, and we got 328 responses. Now, these are not with the same level. We really, last year we had a little bit of, we got feedback that our response rate was a little low because we asked a lot of questions and we had secure links for folks. So this time around, we just gave a general link and we only asked them how many years they've been in the district in these ranges and what school they're from. So that's the only way we can disaggregate this data. But these are, but because we asked it the same way last year and this year, we can actually compare the data from one year to the next. So we lumped these together in different ways, but one of the ways that we lumped the data together was in organizational health and belonging. So again, these are loosely related to research-based constructs. We asked them questions like, do you feel supported by your administration? Do you feel respected or valued in their school or building? Do you feel connected to the district? Do you feel connected to the school community? So we saw an overall positive trend, but some interesting things that jump out at me. For example, we've talked a lot about how everyone in the individual schools doesn't always feel connected to the district. And this was interesting because last year, and the response rates were kind of similar last year to this year. Last year we had a response rate of almost 77. This year it's down to 75. I don't know if that's significant. I don't know if it's the same people taking it, but I like to see positive trends, and we saw a lot of other positive trends here. So that's something we want to try to look at as a priority. This is an interesting one. Can regularly attend or run outside activities to foster richer student connections? This one has gone up a little bit. I'd be curious to learn more about why.
Sure. So what's the difference between connected to the district and connected to the school community?
Ms. Corliss, do you remember what the story was, why we had them as two separate things? All right, so for the record, what Ms. Corliss responded, if folks at home couldn't hear, was that the school community was related to the school and the district was the district as a whole. And if I remember correctly, when I first got here, that was one of the first and immediate concerns is like, we all feel like little silos around the district. Like, how can we feel like more of a unified school community?
So that increased, right? So 24 to 25, they are feeling more connected to their building, but the district less connected to the district.
Yeah.
So the goal we did not achieve that goal.
Well, it's not a problem that they feel connected to the school community. That's a good thing.
Right.
But definitely we want them to feel more connected to the district.
Gap.
Yeah.
The gap increased.
Yes.
Right. The gap increased.
So we haven't actually, we just got all this data in. So we actually haven't, we're still just unpacking this. And this is actually some of the first time we're putting it out there this way. So we'll be bringing this back and working with our faculty to understand it better. This is the same data, just broken out with the strongly agree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree.
Dr. Schwartz, will you be able to pull out gen ed versus special ed responses to some of these questions?
Yes, we can do that with
Okay,
all of them. Yeah.
because that was part of the board goal. That's all. Thank you.
We also have a separate survey set that's
Okay.
specifically for special education, which is not in this presentation as a separate section.
Percentage of staff, these are teachers?
These are teachers, yeah.
Teachers. It's only about a third though, right?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You're asking about these staff surveys.
What I'm trying to get to is that we have a board goal about where we were supposed to be eliciting staff, the experience in special programs via the staff, right? So the staff, the parents, and the students. So when I looked at the questions that were asked of the parents, we can take that out and we can satisfy that goal and get that information. My question is whether or not we can do the same with the staff survey or whether or not we need to do more work to meet the board goal. That's all.
So we're not gonna be able to do that with the staff because we're
Okay.
asked specifically not to include too many identifiers because then we could drill down.
Understood. Okay.
But we
so then
definitely
that's
have
a
that for the,
separate- Then that's a separate issue.
but for
That's all.
community members and for students, we can.
Understand. Thank you.
So here we have operations and procedures. Again, relatively flat, some slight increase. Things get a little more interesting. The next category is instruction and PD. This one doesn't have a total because it's not, the questions weren't always phrased the same way. So sometimes a lower percentage is better. So for example, teachers were asked, they're required to use too many different kinds of technology. The smaller the number, the better. So it doesn't really actually work to compare for the numbers to get bigger. A larger number isn't always better. But this is actually, but this whole section, as much as it is, as much as it's still, we're still not where we want to be, and some of the comments from folks, some of the comments from folks that we want to do, they want to be more, in the same way that kids want to be more involved with curriculum, staff want to be more involved with professional development. So there are some areas that were really interesting. This one I found really interesting. There should be using AI in the classroom. Last year, it was only 37% that said that, and this year it's 50%. So they're clearly seeing the potential benefit. And here it says, this was interesting, their expertise and opinion are used in developing and attending PD offerings. We did see an increase from last year to this year. So that's good. Same thing with receiving appropriate PD to meet the needs of students. We saw an increase from last year to this year, which again is good.
But I do think we need a way to get a higher percentage of staff to respond. I know in the countrywide, we only, in the nation, we have a low percentage of people who vote. And then those people dictate what everybody does.
Yeah.
And then this is a little bit higher, but still rather low. But I do feel the less identifying information would encourage more people. So I think as much as we'd like to know special ed staff versus non, you have to sort of make it, or tell everybody, change your Chromebook with somebody else when you complete it.
Yeah,
something.
we actually had lower rates, and then the rates jumped when we asked them to ask the school principals to set aside time at the faculty meeting to do it. That made a difference. I think we need to be a little more tactical about that. I mean, it is important to call out here that this is a very, it's less than a third of the teachers who are taking the survey, so it is kind of hard to compare from year to year. But nevertheless, I mean, 30% response rate's not bad. So I'll take what we can get.
Mark, on the last slide that you had, that last time resources are provided to innovate, I guess maybe I need new glasses, modify instruction based on PD. So that's of interest to me because we spend a lot of time and resources on professional development. If there is a way to, I mean, if there's a will to do some innovation about what I just learned, but I don't have any time to do it. So that to me is something maybe we need to dig a little deeper into to see what does that really mean? So when you answered that question, what was the thought behind it? That I'm learning all this new stuff, but I've got a ton of other stuff I have to do every day anyways and follow the curriculum. So you can teach me this, but I can't use it.
Yeah, so this is, some of these are hard to interpret. It's a great question. They're hard to interpret because we have such a limited amount of time for teachers. And that's a very specific question. It's about like, do I have time/resources to innovate and modify my instruction based on PD? Teachers have prep time every day. But like, the question isn't about do you use your prep time for that purpose? The question is like, do you get time specifically for that purpose? And I think it's a good idea to carve out time from time to time so that teachers do have time to do that kind of work. But it's usually based on like a need, like as it emerges. So I don't know how realistic it is for that number to be too particularly high, unless we were to be more prescriptive about how they use their specific prep time. So I don't necessarily interpret that. And this is what we have to dig. We have to talk to teachers about like what they mean by that.
What's also interesting is that the teacher feel the rigor. What's the they said here? Oh, something about rigor. The teacher is 89%. The curriculum meets students' needs. The teachers feel very high about that. They feel that it does. There's also something I thought rigor. But it's even though it went down, that's still 80%. Right. So I think and I know the parents wanted more rigor. but the teachers felt that the curriculum that we're offering does, so I'm not really sure what that, but it's.
Definitely have definitely more to glean here. This one was, I know, well over. So this is an interesting one. We asked staff about their beliefs about students and parents, and this was very encouraging year over year because every single one of these metrics, if I remember correctly, improved one year over the next, even the ones that are written negatively. So this one says parents have too much external pressure, or students have too much external pressure, meaning like from forces outside of school as well. And that number went down. So they perceive that kids are not as pressured as they were. Students are empowered to self-advocate. That went up. I mean, these are marginal, but there's still improvements. Yeah, that's the
Community
big one.
feels that the teachers are trusted adults, so I think that's supportive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that went down. Yeah, 10 percentage points. Yeah, 25% total. They can build productive relationships with parents and guardians. This means the faculty feel as though they can build productive relationships with parents and guardian. That went from 86 to 94. All right. This part's actually going to be fairly quick because I don't know, I'm not sure what the ranking systems are waiting for, but they had updated by this time last year and they didn't a lot of them didn't update. So NJDOE has their district and school rankings. It's kind of a secret ranking. This is what you see on their website. They show you year by year. Our trends actually look pretty positive here. It looks like our math proficiency and our ELA proficiency went up through last year. Our growth seems to have gone down a little bit in ELA, but still is on the high side. Math growth was on the low side and now is up. But again, we know that that was impacted by our whole math scope and sequence. So this is of somewhat limited value, especially with the graduation rate having such an impact.
So in this one, I had the question on the Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, where 4-year graduation rate not met.
These are arbitrary standards that they have to put together for their waiver. The state to get the federal money through the ESEA. They have to complete that's not a waiver. They have to complete an application for the grant. It comes as a grant. And to qualify for that, they have to set all these performance standards and they're set somewhat arbitrarily, even for small groups. So the small group has to have like a minimum N, I think, is it 10? Or is it, I don't think it's 20 anymore. I think it's like 10. So the point is that's a very small number of students. So you're going to have a pretty wild amount of variation in that group. And if we had 2 students who were in an 18 to 21-year-old program who were in that category, then they're going to count as not graduating and we're going to get a not met.
So this is 18 to 21 category, or is it it's
No,
4-year
the
graduation rate,
4-year,
right?
when students are in an 18 to 1-year-old program, they count against the district.
Right, but this number has Asians. So if we have Asians, that is probably a large group in Ridgewood. So it's not a small category. So that's where I noted that it says not met.
So Asian, so it's like about 20%, right?
So that's 80
In
students.
our 4-year graduation rate. Yes, that's.
So if those 3 are combined, and if we are saying 4-year graduation rate not met, then
I would just add, and I haven't been able to dig into this sufficiently, but from what I've seen, if that target was, for example, 97% and we were at 96.4, we would have missed the target, and so that could just be a couple of students. And so, again, this is just conjecture, but that's how close it can be sometimes, and you still miss the target.
Graduation percentage rates are required by the state to be very high, especially they're based off of your economic factor. So our expected graduation rates are going to be the same, and the state is very concerned about proportionality. So they basically have the same graduation rate percentage for across all of those groups.
if we can just look at that number, and if you can tell us why is it showing as not met?
Could be individual moments like the math and ELA. It does seem odd that.
Right. So for the economically disadvantaged students, I understand because that's a very small number and that can skew the data. But for when we are adding Asians with the other two categories, Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, that's a lot more than 80, 90 students.
We can look it up.
Just a quick clarification question, which is what's the difference? Is there a difference between met goal and met target?
If I remember correctly, the target is is a target you hit on your way to the goal. So,
Okay.
so once you hit
So
the
get
goal,
you
like you're met
target-
forever.
Okay,
Target's like you had a gap to cover, so
Yeah.
you've
Okay.
made significant progress.
thank you.
But they're great at changing the rules on these things on a regular basis. So Great Schools is probably one of the ones that people are rating systems people are most familiar with. Almost all these at this point really work off of Z-scores. That's how they rate schools against each other. They basically, which is a zero-sum analysis. There's got basically you basically rank everybody by percentile, and then you rate people based on where they are in their percentile. So all of these are a little dubious in that respect because some of these got to be in last place no matter what if you're using a Z-score, but you can see where you change year over year, which is a comparison score, which is helpful. So the way that I mentioned this last year and I checked all these numbers and I fact checked them. Actually, I just confirmed them one last time today that Great Schools has not updated with 2024 data. So they are still working off of 2023 data and they are still pulling most of their categories from the 2018 civil rights data collection. I'm not sure why the feds waited a long time, but we just completed that report. So I'm guessing that maybe that's why they're waiting to update their records because they know the CRDC is coming. I'm not sure when the feds are going to release that data. But again, we did just report it. I'm thinking it's probably going to be like a fall turnaround. Do you have any information on this, Mrs. Murphy?
So I know that we just recently got a notification that they're going to be sending us what they see as inconsistencies, so they'll get a response from us. So I would think that probably late fall,
Yeah, that's what I
early
think.
winter, because they're still in this data verification process for CRDC.
So districts, there could be a pretty significant jumping around of people's rankings and ratings on the basis of the fact that they pull a lot of data that they judge the schools off of, that they judge the schools on based off of these couple of reports. CRDC is where we report all of our proportionality of our different races with respect to suspension, with respect to our staff members. So then that's where they pull all that data from. So we're being judged as of right now on data that's 5 years old.
Dr. Schwartz, we also,
More than that.
the EEO, which is where they collect the staff data and CRDC does look at that, has been delayed indefinitely at this point for public schools. So we haven't reported in about 2 years and we don't have any information when the next time EEO 5 will be requested from us at this time.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here.
Just as an update on the Asian graduation rate. So the cohort graduation rate, the 4-year graduation rate was 94.8%, and the target was 94.9%. Not met. So
the target is by race, or that 94.9 is across the board?
that's for that particular subgroup for the 4 years. Yes. So there are different targets for the different subgroups.
Okay, that makes sense. Or
And all subcategories, but then totally oh, but it's not a sub of that.
I would suspect, I would bet cash dollars that there are students in the 18 to 20-year-old program that fit in that category, and so they're not counting as graduated.
I think that may be the case because I think the overall rate was 97.2 for one of the years, and it says continuing 2.8. So there's definitely a group of students who are not being accounted for, and that's got to be our continuing students.
Thanks. So then these are our school rankings based on Great Schools. But again, this data is so outdated. These are all basically the same scores as last year. We just confirmed them with this year's data. They were better than 2 years before. I think that sounds right. Do I have 2-year-old data here?
Yeah,
I'll take full credit for that. Thanks. All right. So U.S. News and World Report, U.S. News unapologetically puts all their rankings on a 2-year data lag, and they haven't updated for 2005. So that we're still looking at the exact same rankings as last year, and it's still working off the 2022 data. So there's really nothing to report here. All these percentage weights are still advertised the same. We've been in the 37th spot since 2002. This has been our scorecard since that time, so there's no change here. 37. Yes, I just excluded them from the list here. But yeah, our true rank is 37. If you count, I excluded the magnet schools from the list, but if you count them, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're the 18th, not including magnet schools. It's on their scale. Niche.com, you're familiar with this. This is the survey-based one. This is actually, I appreciate the fact that they use surveys, but one of the challenges of surveys, if people don't take them, then you don't get a good score for your school. These are still our factors. I'm sorry, I didn't update that number. It's the same number for 2005. So they have not changed their scores either. This is schooldigger.com. They did update with 2024 data. This uses only NJSLA data. It Z-scores only math and ELA. It doesn't use any other metrics. So we went from a very high percentile here, looks like probably about 96 or 97 to something like 97 or 98. So those are our slides. So for we took a stab at some key takeaways because I always feel like I should like kind of try to summarize in some capacity. This is very broad. It's not meant to be empirical because really what I want to do is I want to invite folks to have the same conversations that we've had, staff members, community members, parents. I don't know how many are going to go through this whole process, but we're going to really ask for feedback. So I'd love to hear from people because I don't want to just make assumptions. So some takeaways are our surveys and academic data do seem to show, to me at least, a stable and general and like somewhat positive trend. But there are some exceptions. Our ELA growth continues to be generally positive. Math is, last year we saw math growth, but when we look at our math data with our stable cohort data, we are not consistent in math. It does require a continued focus. Hopefully the data comes in and all those efforts this last year made a significant difference, but we need to continue to watch our transitions. As I said here, 3rd to 4th, 4th to 6th, and 8th to 9th transitions remain concerning. We have to stay focused there. Some subgroups are having a very positive experience, depending on which metrics you're looking at, but in the surveys, again, reporting just very positive. But others are having a more mixed experience. Staff and parent perceptions appear to be experiencing a positive trend to an extent. PSAT participation rates are in decline for multiple years. And while SAT participation is up, but scores could be in decline as a result. Some areas of improvement are already underway. You wouldn't know that from this presentation per se, but we called out the fact that we have been really working on articulations. Mr. Ross, did you want to talk about that?
So actually the transition work started in earnest last summer after the previous State of the Schools address where we identified the 5, 6, and 8, 9 concerns. So throughout the year, the math supervisors, both K-5 and 6-12 have worked together to bring together a cohort of teachers. Really, they had 3 official meetings this year to articulate and to make sure that everyone had the same sort of expectation, common language, et cetera. So we're going to continue this process for next year, and we're plotting that out as part of our professional development offerings.
Great, thank you very much. So our NJSLA science scores have been a little bit low, particularly at the middle school this last year. We see some improvements, K-5, 9, 12. And then, of course, disaggregating survey results and comments are going to help us highlight additional target areas for follow-up. We did not get into comment analysis. I've read almost all the comments. I've been playing around with using Gemini to try to summarize the comments. The results haven't been perfectly reliable. But we're going to play around with that a little bit more to see if we can quantify some of those results, but also just to look for ideas for things to follow up on with staff members. Our strategic plan, of course, we presented on just back in April, and it is going to be what we revolve our work around. These are the 5 pillars of our plan. So journey of a graduate, balanced culture and climate, infrastructure, facilities and finance, programs, pathways, proficiencies, and engagement. So we added just a couple of kind of possible action items here just to start conversation. And then, of course, we'll open up for conversation about anything else that we want to make sure we have as takeaways from this work. So for Journey of a Graduate, we want to continue our habits of work. That's been some really meaningful work that's really focused on academic culture and academic behaviors among students. We really want to focus on competencies K-12 so that we can have consistency of our standards and expectations for students across all grades and all subjects. And I think portfolio systems, ways of kind of having students in charge of kind of collecting their own artifacts of their own learning is a really, I think, a really conducive way for us giving kids agency over their progress with their journey of a graduate. Culture and climate, we have to really dig into these surveys. I think our faculty are a really rich resource for us to be able to work into, to talk to. But I think engaging even some of our subgroups of parents and students as well who are reporting that mixed experience, that would be really helpful. Infrastructure and facilities, we've talked about master plans, and we're on our way there with the comprehensive facilities assessment. We've talked about budgetary projections. We'd really like to get to a place where we're like really kind of consistently providing budgetary projections as to where we think we'll land with each year. And Mr. Matthews and his team has been doing a great job evaluating vendor services and ensuring that we're very transparent, and that we're getting the best service for our students. Programs, pathways, and proficiencies, that's a mouthful, and that is where a huge portion of this work kicks in, from MTSS protocols to IEP to evaluating our IEPs, continually evaluating our IEP services, looking at our transition, our INRS and 504 transitions, making sure that our families feel very supported. We have a new gifted and talented program that we're rolling out. And then, of course, we have to be continuously looking at our regular schedule of annual program evaluations. And lastly, engagement's a big part of this. So, conducting a soft rollout of the Vision 2030 plan, I think, is the right way forward before we brand it and finalize it. So I know Ms. Corliss right now is working with different focus groups. We want to invite our faculty and particularly in feeling invested in that process. We have to, of course, we want to connect everybody in the journey of a graduate, mission and vision, and the Vision 2030. We have, I know Ms. Corliss has a whole plan for continuing to engage the community, including alumni and business owners. And of course, all of our communication channels. We've done a lot in this last year, but of course, we want to continue to push information out. And then we talked about that data point about staff feeling increasingly connected to their schools, which is great, but we want them to also feel really connected to the community. So we've been using the surveys, engaging them in that way is important. I'm certainly trying to engage the schools more now that we're getting a little more settled here at the Ed Center. I've been doing office hours at the school, which has been a really nice opportunity to get to have some FaceTime with teachers and see more what's going on and be more engaged in what's going on in the schools. And also increasing our communications. We prioritize a lot of communications with the community, and I feel like we probably could do a little bit of a better job in pushing regular communications to our staff and engaging them from a district perspective. I know the schools do a great job. So as we close, I'd love to hear any additional thoughts, hypotheses that people have. Some guiding questions are, what aspects of this presentation resonate? What hasn't been consistent? Anybody have any hypotheses or anecdotes? And are there any areas that we should inquire further into?
So I have input on number 4, and maybe you can provide your inputs on that. We have a class graduating in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. Do you think we should send out 2 surveys, one to graduating students and one to graduating students' parents? And both would be a 1-question open-ended survey. That 1 question that what would be your feedback to improve the experience in school? it can be a survey to students and the same single question survey to the parents. Just an open-ended question. In the past, those type of open-ended questions were difficult to act on. That okay, what if we'll get 400 answers? Maybe 50% students might respond, 50% parents, so 400 answers. What to do with that? But now we can feed those 400 to an AI and ask the AI that is there a trend there, or is there a common theme there? Nobody has to like read those. Not everybody will respond once they are out of school. They may not even respond. But those who are truly out of the district after they get their graduation certificate, they'll be able to provide some honest opinion.
Thank you.
Just like how you were saying that if it's truly anonymous, then only staff would feel more comfortable. So in this case, once they are out of the district, then they may provide some inputs, and some of them may be constructive feedback that there is not everybody would be nasty. Some may be constructive feedback.
Sure, of course.
And we can take some of that.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the entire staff and everyone who worked tirelessly on this, because this was densely populated with data, which, you know, you told us to wait till the end, but I couldn't help myself. So I was jumping all over the place. And I appreciate your patience with that. But there's so much to delve into here. And I thought it was fantastic. So I just want to acknowledge and thank the amount of work that you and the entire team did building up to this, and then having, you know, a couple of unanticipated events on Friday and then having it go into the weekend through today. I think it's important to acknowledge that you guys really did a yeoman's job and a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So I think it's just to answer some of those questions. You know, what struck me was that it's pretty clear. I'm really glad that we are hiring another guidance counselor for the high school, because clearly it was pretty clear that we have a mandate that, you know, the parents don't feel like their kids are getting enough time and guidance. I think that's going to affect our college admissions. I would love to see, as we talk about some of our metrics and the things that we're looking at as we're building out some of the career and technical education options and other options for kids, I'd like to see that maybe be something that we incorporate next year, or as we build those programs. I think you have quite a bit of work to do, and exciting work to do in terms of how this state of the schools and what information this has given us, and how that then will be incorporated into the strategic plan, right, as we're building it out. So I find it very exciting. And so I thank you all for your attention to detail here. The one thing that I picked up, there were two things that I picked up on, small, but maybe not so small. One of them is that I saw in the earlier slides, we talk a lot about the transitions and some of the inconsistencies in the transitions with math. But if you look at the cohorts, I thought it was pretty consistent that in seventh grade, both math and ELA, I think on slides 17 and 21, at least in the draft that you sent, went down. So that's not a
Wait, say that one more time.
So I think slides 17 and 21 showed that the cohorts, the stable cohorts that took the NJSLA for ELA and math, scores went down in seventh grade, right? If you look at the current eighth grade, 786, 77, right? It goes down. No. There's the current. So if you're looking, no, I'm looking at current eighth graders, right? The scores.
You're looking at this group?
Yeah.
So
if I'm reading.
these guys were in seventh grade here. They were in sixth grade here.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Because they're current eighth grade.
Okay. Okay.
I know it's hard to read. You're not.
Okay.
It hurts my brain.
Rosanna down. I used to say, never mind. Okay, forget it. I apologize, because I thought about that 15 different ways. Okay, strike that. The other thing is, I would just like us, as we're looking at different things and we're talking about norming DEI and things like that, not only the question that I raised with you about the respect and the differential between I'm respectful, but yet I don't feel respected, which is pretty consistent. I was really looking at, there's a 5-point difference between whether in middle school and high school, whether females feel safe and males feel safe. Now, both of those numbers could use to be increased in school, but it was just something that I was thinking about. Where is it?
Feel safe.
Feel safe in school. So 87% versus 92, right? So not a huge difference, but I don't know, it depends on the number of kids that is, but I think it's important because a lot happens in secondary school, right? Between 6th grade and 12th grade. And so it might be something that we want to look at and consider. I would personally love to see all of it over 95% if we could do that. Everybody here too, right? But it was just something that I picked up on. So, but fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Maybe for Brian, Ms. McGalley is saying, let's add a self-defense course. A self-defense course for them to feel safe. So I was only thinking that we are answering those 4 bullet points at the end, but for the overall presentation.
Oh, no, it's just, there's just.
So for the overall presentation, I think the state of school address is a new standard, because we used to have presentations at Board of Ed meetings which are required by the state to be presented at Board of Ed. We never had volunteer data presentation, right? So so there's a difference between those are the presentations that are required by the state and the minimal requirements met versus this is and I have a group of board members that I communicate with in New Jersey, and I basically send them the state of school address recording just to brag about Ridgewood. So
Thank you.
so I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to send this presentation to that 35 group that, okay, this is what we do in Ridgewood. Do you guys do that?
You're gonna make me very popular with my fellow superintendents.
No, I want to, so I'll jump in for a little bit here. Again, Dr. Schwartz and the whole team, great job here. Appreciate it. A lot of good data here. So thank you for that. I'll ask a difficult question, and maybe this is just in the spirit of how do we improve and how do we get better on the reporting and our metrics, et cetera. And maybe this doesn't have a place in the state of the schools. Maybe this is elsewhere. But for me, the golden question, I'm kind of looking at you, Dr. Ross, the golden question is always, how are we being effective in pushing our students in all ways possible? Learning, music, extracurricular, and that's a very difficult question to answer, right? So that's a loaded question, right? How do are we being effective in that? And are we getting better over the years? That to me is like the golden question that would be on my mind as a board member or as an administrative team. And that to me takes, it's a whole other type of level of reporting and analysis where, and I think we've been getting there slowly, but now how do we start reporting on there? And I think a lot of that is going to be based probably on the linked data that we have, right? Which is more specific to our students, to our grades, to our cohorts, to our teachers, right? How do we measure that data and realize, are we improving and reaching our students? Because this is phenomenal and a lot of great work, but my worry is if we're going off, the state standards and the NJSLA and the SAT and the college admissions, those are like the high-level state public metrics, and we have to go off of those. So I'm not denying that, and there's a lot of value to analyzing that data. Is that 3rd grader or that 5th grader in the classroom, is it really resonating with him or her? When that teacher is teaching, is he getting it? Is he being pushed to the next level, right? How are we really impacting every student? Again, that's a loaded question. I'm not expecting an answer today or tomorrow or next month or next year, but that would be like the problem question, that how do we get to that point? And perhaps one day in the future, when we have our hands around our own custom data that we have, right? Because the NJSLA gives us very little to go off of, and we can't even dive deeper into what's going on. But I saw it earlier this year when we started looking at the linked data, when we're going over the math and the English. Should that be part of this in the future where we start reporting out on that? Is that a different deep dive session that we do? Because that's the piece that really will start to show me, like, are we impacting every student in the third grade, fourth, sixth grade, seventh grade, et cetera.
Thank you for that very loaded question. In the interest of time, I will not try to answer it in its totality. But I think that a short response would be that one of the things that we are paying a lot of attention to is systems thinking and systems building, right? And so you've heard us talk a lot about multi-tiered system of supports for next year. You've heard us talk about the G&T hiring, and part of the G&T hiring is targeted toward a very specific group of kids. But in a broader sense, that G&T hiring is the rising tide that can lift all boats with enrichment for all. So I think it's an approach that's multifaceted that gives us access to more of the data that you're talking about. Linkett's a part of it. And then also there's the anecdotal stuff, that's a part of it too. What are the kids talking about? What are they saying? What are they producing? And then also, I think the work that our supervisors are doing with our teachers, in terms of moving them with this sort of data and the Linkit data and how receptive teachers are and how they're turnkeying it and changing their approaches, that's also something. Capturing that and measuring that and then sharing that is a whole other problem. But that's something that we're going to try to tackle.
Thank you, exactly.
And I've got a few ideas that we'll follow up on with you. Thank you for that. That's
But again, great job. There's a lot here and a lot to go off of. So thank you again, Dr. Schwartz and Christine and Dr. Ross, Dr. Fenwick and everybody. So thank you for all your work here.
As the newbie here, it's very interesting to see it here in person than at home. Because you really can sit here and it's large screen and you see the trends. And it's very helpful when I think back to the meetings on the vision, 2030, and how some of our concerns are showing up here, especially some of the good news. Teachers are valued, and I think it's a more positive in most categories. We're improving. Yes, we have things to improve. We're never going to really reach where we need to be, but it's very comforting and very interesting to really see it here in person and larger than trying to look at it from at home. And I know the audience at home can see it, but it's very interesting having it right here. But again, thank you. This was a lot of data and a lot of work, so many different surveys, trying to compare year to year and what's the best questions for elementary versus high school. And I think it's very, very, very valuable, especially with our new vision plan. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. Great job. So just following up a little bit on Mohammed, because we can look at ELA and we can look at math scores, but we also have that big goal of engagement. And how are we engaging our students? So in looking at participation rates, how many kids are engaged in the various clubs? How many are taking after-school opportunities at the middle schools? How many are doing the math challenges, spelling bees? I mean, we've got a ton of stuff going on in our district. But to me, that's part of the education process that you want. So it's beyond just reading and math. It's that engagement, because that's how we build a lot of our skills in adulthood, right? If I can engage in activities and develop interests, well, that can bring me to be a part of the invent team or whatever it is. So I don't know if there's a way to pull some of that data together. I also would like to, I heard you say earlier tonight about the Linkit scores, this last Linkit test, positive outcome, will this translate into how our scores are on our tests? And so we've invested quite a bit in Linkit. And so perhaps next year there is a way to look at, did Linkit really predict well how our students are doing? I sit here and, I understand, I wanted to see, maybe our scores being higher. I understand that our interventions are this year, so the testing is this, and we don't have the data yet. So there's that data lag. But I'll be interested in next year, seeing, any progress. I also would like to see, maybe, I don't know whether we can downsize some of the questions that we're asking, to the parents, and our teachers to really, what is it that we really want to know? I'm not sure of the answers, but when we look at, again, the participation rate of our families and our teachers, is the survey too long? What is it that we really want to know? I don't know the answer to that, but we might look at that again for next year. But of course, then you don't have the comparable data when you change it up. So that's the downsides of changing it up. Anyways, I need to spend a little bit more time with this, but thank you so much. Really appreciate it, to everyone who contributed to that. Yeah.
Thank you all very much. And I just have, I want to open it up to the team because I didn't give them a chance to talk at all in this presentation because I was trying to be efficient. I don't know. I don't think I was effective in that measure, but one of the things I want to share too is we really could benefit at this point by like figuring out, to the spirit of your question, like what data don't we need at this point? A couple of years, I think we're doing a lot of ACT, SAT data. I don't know, do we need as much of that? Because if I do agree, I think there's other things we should be evaluating and reporting. I was thinking about like, typically we talk about it as like a grade inflation report, but like looking at like NJSLA scores, like on with a similar range, with a similar representation on a kind of in the same place of like, here's our SAT, or here's our NJSLA trend, here's our Linkit trend, do they align? And here are our like classroom grade trends, do they align, right? Because if one of those skews off in a different direction, then it's like, well, hold on, what's happening here, right? And that's what I think it's some of the spirit of your question, right, Mr. Mahmood, is like, how do we know that we're really getting the most out of them? Like, this really is one metric. We spend a lot of time looking at a lot of different ways, and it is a good one. Like, everybody takes it, and we get some good data, and it's rigorous and it's comprehensive, but it is only one. So if there's data that you feel like we could like report less on, because this is going to turn into like a 120 slide presentation at some point in time. We need like 2 days to do this thing. I would love to know that. Or ways of condensing the data to like a more dense representation, sort of like this. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time. For members of the, Mrs. Brogan, I'm not sure how you want to handle, but I know that we have a very short agenda. Do you want to just let people jump on with public comment if they have questions or comments with the presentation? So if anybody's here and you have something you want to say, this should be relatively quick.
There's a promise of a half an hour. Wasn't quite.
It was not a promise.
Oh, it was a statement. It was a thought. A goal.
Mary, it was a goal that was not met.
Satisfactory progress made.
Please report on that next year, Dr. Shores.
But in any case, we don't have anyone, I don't think, here in the audience, at the Ed Center. And I don't see any hands raised right now. But I would encourage people, as you're thinking about it, to really, we're going to have this on our website, and to really take a look at this data. And if not tonight, because it was a lot of data, but send your questions or ask some questions, and we'll see if we can make sense of the data, because the data's pretty dense.
Yeah, we need help. It's a community effort. And Superintendent Coffee is going to be on the 17th too. So that's a great place to bring your observations. And
oh, great.
as an interim
Good
meeting.
idea. Okay, I don't see
Sorry,
any.
just a quick question there. I don't know if you remember from past years, you think you'll have a good attendance at the next Superintendent Coffee? With it just end of year. I don't know if you remember past.
No, it's usually lower at this time of year, but we'll invite people to watch the presentation. I'll give a brief recap, which will be brief, but I'll invite people to look at the data in advance and bring the conversations.
Worth it, like literally like a 30-minute summary in September of the copies of this again, and just that way to get more like relevant feedback.
That's a good point. Yeah, people are coming back to have their attention at the start of the school year.
But really like a short summary version,
Mhm.
and just to refresh people's memories, just solicit feedback.
It's an interesting idea. Thank you.
When is your next go?
The 17th.
If there's great attendance,
Which is a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday, yeah.
Uh,
Because
uh,
graduation's Thursday.
graduation.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, good idea.
it's gonna be hard.
That's a tough one. And there's all the wrap-up activities at the schools.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, I don't see any public comment at this point, so let us move on to our agenda items. And consent items, regular and routine. I move administration. May I have a second? Second. Are there any? Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any comments, concerns, or discussion on that? Seeing none, good. Take a roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Curriculum and instruction, we were just really approving the field trips. I move curriculum instruction. Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
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 Yes. Human resources, again, our hiring. Is there, on one, I have a yellow mark though on I'm not sure if I might not have the latest. There is one support staff member that has no on my copy.
The updated copy is online, so.
Yeah.
Did they update
It's
it?
been up.
Yeah.
Okay,
they
thank
were
you.
updated.
Yeah.
So this is from Board Drive, but the new ones. were
Great.
updated.
I didn't get to do that this afternoon at work, so.
Yeah, the
Great.
one that was sent out on Friday to all the emails,
Mhm.
that is a new update.
Oh, okay. Great.
You're questioning
Yeah.
these, the question marks, right? The dollar amount?
Just on one,
Yeah.
but it's already, yes, yeah. Yeah, this is. All right,
But
would
there
someone
was-
like to move human resources?
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was one correction on the on the paraprofessionals. That should be Ridge and not RHS on the 2C. I apologize.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
On 2C, the location should be Ridge, not RHS.
Oh. Okay. Like that, with that correction. No, we're gonna move it. I'm just trying to see, did anyone want to move it? Human resources, and then we will discuss.
I'll move it. Oh, sorry, you want to move it?
I'll move, human resources.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there some discussion?
I wanted to not vote for one of these subgroups. So can I say yes, but I don't.
So you could move it without, with the exception of whatever it is that you are not voting on.
Just, so that would be the group
It's for you.
for me.
Yeah.
So I say that now?
Yeah.
Okay. I want.
When you vote.
When you vote, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So it's move, yes, roll call.
Yes.
Yes, except for section 2B. That's no,
Abstain.
abstain.
Is it abstain or no? Are you voting no or are you? Yes, it's no.
Oh, you're voting, do you want to not vote or do you want to vote a no?
No, I want to.
Against it.
It's only one vote, so I'm not gonna change. So it's like,
No, if you.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything, but if you want to vote no, then you vote no. Yeah.
If you just don't want to vote on it for some reason.
there's something here that I don't agree with,
Oh, then you could vote.
then I can vote no.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I, so it's yes, but everything but.
To be.
That's no. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, yeah. Yes, everything else on that one. Yeah. Finance. I move finance.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Board member announcements?
The only thing it's really committee report, but CPAG meeting is June 10th at 9:30 at the Ed Center. So great.
Just a reminder that our teacher celebration honors will be tomorrow night at BF 7 o'clock. And the public is welcome, and parents, and you may bring a student if you're, certainly if you're the teacher is being honored that evening. It's always nice to see students there as well. And of course, the board members, if you're available. It's a nice evening. And I think that's, oh, and awards night at the high school for seniors is the 10th. Also at 7 o'clock. I won't be there that night, but if everybody, I don't know who's going, but if you cannot be there, please make sure you let the administration know. And so, Mary, you can't be there? Yeah.
But I let her know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
It is the 10th of June at 7 o'clock.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I can attend that.
Okay, great. Great. Are you going to be able to? Great. Okay. And we didn't really have any committees. Did we meet between the last two meetings? I don't think so. I think all our committee members, policy.
Oh, that's good.
Well, you can report next time, okay? If we just, no, it's fine. Any discussion items? Please no. Nope. Great. We have no acceptance of minutes, no other business. Okay, I will just circle right around from comments from the public if there are any. None here, remote. Seeing none. Now, I just want to, we're going to motion to close this meeting. We could go back into executive session, or an alternative might be if you are available to come for part of, we are meeting again on June 16th at 5 o'clock on a personnel issue, but we might be able to carry on some of our discussion on personnel rather than do it tonight and stay later.
When do Dr. Schwartz have to make a decision on those?
Not till the 23rd of June, the week after.
So we are meeting in between the two meetings?
We're meeting just an executive session. Oh, in June, we have two meetings, tonight and on the 23rd.
Right.
And the executive session that we have at 5 o'clock on the 16th is on a personnel issue to do the evaluation.
So we'll do that after that?
I thought maybe we'd do it before.
23rd is up. I'll be missing those. I'm gonna be out of the country.
So you'll be missing 16th?
vote 16.
So then we should go back today.
We should go back tonight?
Yeah, because Mohammed had some points, right? So we should go back today, yeah.
Okay. So I make a motion to then close the public meeting, but then go into executive session. Um,
Second.
Don't I have
Okay.
to read this thing?
Will not be coming back, right?
We will not be coming back. No.
Yeah.
So I hereby move that the board go into executive session pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12 to discuss matters pertaining to personnel. The minutes of this closed session will be released when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And I believe that this executive session just really is the board and Dr. Schwartz, right? Right. So, good night all, and we will be back on June 23rd. Thank you.